It is legit fantasy football night in America because we have real life NFL football going on tonight. Welcome in to the Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I am your host, Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. So glad to have you aboard tonight for, God, it's been since February, right? So we're looking at roughly 6 months or so since we've had NFL football. And tonight we get the Lions, we get the Chargers. Probably not the best of the Lions and the Chargers, but we will get something tonight. And I'm so glad to be hosting not only a show tonight with you, not only bringing you the latest of what's going on in the Hall of Fame game, but a live FFPC draft that we will be covering in less than 28 minutes, for the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, which has a $300,000 grand prize, a $100,000 runner-up prize, and 12 drafters are going to be going for that tonight. That starts, like I said, in less than a half hour. We're going to have full coverage on that tonight. So much to get to tonight. Once again, this is the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. If you want to connect with the FFPC, do so at FFPC. I'm going to bring in our guest co-host here shortly, and I'm going to tell you everywhere you need to connect with him. But before I do, I want to tell you what's going on with the FFPC. The FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament is going strong right now. We have live drafts and slow drafts going off a ton every single day. You won't be waiting long if you want to play in the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. $1 million grand prize. How much is it to enter? Just $350. And if you enter 3 teams, every third team, we're going to give you a $50 discount on that as well. Drafts running now, like I said, live and slow. And then the 7 Bananas promo is live. What's the 7 Bananas promo? If you continue to get that 7 pick multiple times in a row, we're going to give you free FFPC teams. We have already awarded 38, I believe the count is up to 38, free FFPC Best Ball Tournament teams for people who have gotten the 7 pick twice in a row. We have given away 3 FFPC main event teams. That is a value of just under $2,500. We've given away 3 of those for teams that have gotten the 7 pick 3 times in a row. We have yet to give away this, but I think it's going to be coming over the next month when drafts are really going hard. For anybody who gets that 7 pick 4 times in a row in the Big Gorilla Tournament, you get a free entry into the FFPC High Society League. What is that? It is a league featuring 12 teams going for one grand prize, $100,000. I believe it's $50,000 grand prize. Excuse me. And the entry, no, it's more than that. It's $100,000 grand prize. The entry into that is $10,000. So if you get that 7 pick in the Big Gorilla 3 times in a row, you are going to get that free entry into the High Society. If you get it, or that's 4 times in a row. If you get it 5 times in a row, guess what? We are sending you on a jungle safari for 4, a value of $50,000. How do I know how much it's valued at? Because if you don't want to go on the jungle safari for 4, we're going to give you 50 grand cash. This is all with the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. Sign up now at myffpc.com. Speaking of the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the main event is going strong right now as well. Our flagship event is the main event, $1 million grand prize, more than a $6 million prize pool. We have slow drafts and live drafts running now. I mentioned this if you are subscribing to the FFPC email newsletter that I send out. From today, I think today is the first day. It might have been yesterday, but I know for sure today, at a minimum, is the first day. We will have an FFPC main event live draft going from today all the way up to the start of the NFL season, including probably Sunday morning drafts as well. So if you want to draft in the FFPC main event for $1 million, you're going to have the opportunity to do so in a live fashion every single day from here on out. Now, the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, which is what we're covering tonight, is live as well, live and slow drafts. It's going to set you back $125 to join. However, if you win it, you're going to get a $300,000 grand prize. If you don't win it, you're going to get a $100,000 runner-up prize if you finish second in this. And the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament is, of course, live as well. That features a $100,000 grand prize, and that's only $35 to enter. We have drafts going at 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour timers right now with the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Join now at myffpc.com. I know that, Dynasty is huge. Everybody wants to play fantasy football 365 days a year. We have the answer for that as well at the FFPC. 2,000 plus leagues in more than 15 years. None of those 2,000 plus leagues have ever folded. So if you are going to be joining an FFPC Dynasty League, you know you will be in it until you don't want to be in it anymore. These leagues don't fold. you are in it for the long haul, or as long as you want to play FFPC Dynasty Fantasy Football, which is every single day, year-round, 365 days a year. myffpc.com is where to go for that. That's myffpc.com. Okay. We have our guest co-host coming up right now, ladies and gentlemen. Such a treat to have him on tonight. This is a guy who is one of the best ball players in the world. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. How do I know this? Because this guy was featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine for his best ball prowess. And he is joining us tonight, not only to talk about the evolution of best ball tournaments, not only the latest goings on in the NFL as far as fantasy goes, but to talk about this FFPC best ball tournament we're going to be covering live here for you in about 22 minutes. You follow him on the X at Justin Herzig. You read his content over at Establish the Run, as well as ffin60.com. Please welcome into the program. So good to have this guy coming on tonight. It is Justin Herzig. Justin, welcome in tonight, man. Welcome to FFPC Insider Access. How are you doing on this Thursday Hall of Fame game night, man?
I appreciate it. It is great to be here. Hopefully I'm not too laggy. I think my computer decided to, there we go. I think we're good now.
Yeah,
but no, it's fantastic. We have football. And we're even going to get a little sprinkle of a Marion Hampton. We get a throwback to Trey Lance. Who cares if it's a good game or not? We're actually having football. I'm excited. Yeah, it's good to be here.
It's going to be fun tonight because we have not only a game to monitor, we have a draft to monitor, which is starting here shortly. I want to get into, and I'm sorry if I'm leading off with this, if you're sick of talking about it. I'm not sick of talking about it, and I'm excited to have you on. Rolling Stone, dude. This is insane. For fantasy, for fantasy football, we haven't really seen for the longest time, and Justin, you've probably been playing for a long time. But for the longest time, fantasy footballers, even high stakes players, we were the nerds. We were the guys that nobody cared about. Like fantasy,
we still
football.
are.
We probably still are. You're probably right on that. And then Rolling Stone decides, hey, let's feature this guy Justin Herzig, who has won a massive tournament before. Has not only won it, but he's been a finalist in this tournament multiple years. Probably the best ball player in the world. I don't know. There's no way to quantify it for the purposes of this conversation. I'm going to say you are. And you're joining us tonight. The Rolling Stone thing, how did that come about? And what was that experience like? Because the rest of us will probably never have this in our life where we get a chance to be in Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah, never expected it either. I've never played an instrument, can't sing. So no, that was never even a possibility. So for it to happen through fantasy football is just unreal. But yeah, a little on the backstory is I'd say middle of the season, the writer who's been in the kind of sports betting, this space before, and he had kind of just a goal of, hey, I want to write an article on the best fantasy football player, and I'm just going to do what I can to find him. And so he reached out to a couple of people that he knew through the space. One of them put them in touch with me. We had a few conversations. And then from there, he just kind of kept tracking. We kept in touch throughout the season. I'd say the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. Each week, we'd keep in touch, talk about how things are going. Gave him a little peek inside, what it's like to be sweating things like best ball throughout the season, especially when you go from the regular season to the playoffs and so forth. And then a couple weeks before the final season, he's like, hey, if you end up making it to the finals of Best Ball Mania, because that would be my 5th time in the 5 years they've had it. He's like, I'll fly down to Florida. We'll make a weekend out of it. I want to see what it looks like to actually feel that sweat, what your process is, because I'm still doing the DFS and all the managed stuff as well. But obviously best ball is kind of my, focus or, main area. So he flies down for that weekend, kind of sees what that week 17 sweat was like. We did a couple more long form interviews. He did a couple with my wife as well. That's probably the most shocking thing was for people who read it. So my wife's a very private person, doesn't use social media. And the article literally opens up with my wife's name, Ariel. It goes, Ariel is a normal person. Ariel works in tech, does Pilates, and avoids gluten. And everyone in my family, her family, that knows her. It was just cherry on top. It was hilarious.
That is good stuff, and obviously, I'm sure it's still sinking in. What's crazy is so I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin, Justin, and this weekend we have the Mile of Music. Now Appleton is probably like what 70, 80,000 people. It's just a 25-minute drive southwest of Green Bay, but the Mile of Music thing is huge because we have all these bands from all over the country come in and they play all weekend long. It's a really cool experience or whatever. All these people would have loved to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. So when I start hanging out with these bands this weekend, say, hey, I just interviewed this guy, basically the best fantasy football player in the world, and he was on the cover of Rolling Stone. They're going to be like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong that this fantasy football player is on the cover of Rolling Stone? So congratulations on that. That is fantastic. So glad that you're hopping aboard tonight. And I do want to pick your brain, as I know most of the people who are tuning in tonight, Justin, want to get your opinion on a lot of stuff going on. And breaking news just before we went on the air tonight, Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports has reported that Terry McLaurin has requested a trade from the Washington Commanders. Apparently, within within 15 minutes before we went on, this happened. So we are literally breaking the news. Adam Schefter has reported earlier this week that contract talks between McLaurin and the Commanders were very far apart, despite McLaurin apparently giving ground in reporting to training camp on Sunday. He's holding in with a ankle injury right now. This, I think, you have the opportunity right now to either buy the dip or ignore McLaurin in drafts right now, based on this news that we're just getting in here. If you were drafting right now, what's the proper way to handle Terry McLaurin in drafts? Are you trying to get him at a discount, or are you avoiding the situation?
Yeah, so I think it helps to kind of look back on what's happened over the past couple of weeks, where first we hear from Terry McLaurin that, he's willing to do a hold in, hold out, request trade, like pretty much everything was on the table. Okay, that's a first kind of form of negotiation. They went public, most likely through his agent. So that tells us that they already tried to kind of, hey, come to an agreement with Washington. They couldn't do that. So they go public, try to get sign of support from their fans to say, hey, let's make a deal. That still didn't do anything. So then he went to the ankle, the hold in, we can call it. And we have to imagine that there's still these negotiations, conversations going on behind the scenes. In parallel, we get two major deals that happen. You've got, one was before the DK Metcalf. I think that came out to $33 million a year. DK Metcalf substantially younger. Then you have Cortland Sutton. That comes out to 4 years, $92 million. So I think that's more in that kind of $23 million a year. And my thoughts are Washington, I don't know, the reports where they weren't even willing to go to the 23. Maybe they're okay, that could be a baseline. But from the Terry camp, I think they were far more looking at that DK Metcalf, even though they probably should be looking more when you look at the comps from age, from what they did last year, from an efficiency standpoint. The Cortland Sutton's a pretty fair comp. And so if Washington, if Terry and his camp are saying no, that's not enough for me, I mean, hey, it is what it is. So he's going to put that request out there. But where I get it is, this is just another kind of line in the negotiations. Yes, it's a stronger one, but I mean, it's still possible that this kind of works itself out. Where am I kind of handling the Terry McLaurin right now? I think if you go around the league and you think through what are the possible landing spots, first off, they have to have substantial salary cap to actually bring him in, because he's only going to, accept that trade if it includes a new deal. And we're already into we're already into preseason. There aren't that many landing spots that would actually probably help him. And so when you think about the type of wide receiver he is, his efficiency last year came on touchdowns, the rapport, the just explosiveness of Jaden Daniels. It's hard to imagine many spots that are, from a probability standpoint, that this is going to be an uptick. So I think you say there's X% chance that it's actually going to hurt him, or he stays where he is, which then he's being drafted maybe about where it's valued. So I think it probably makes sense. He should probably fall another half round. Maybe once he falls around, now that's talking depending on the format, you're talking maybe late 4th, early 5th. I think that's probably a fair place to draft him. I think the undertalk thing is Jaden Daniels. If he's not throwing to Terry McLaurin and now his offense is looking like Deebo Samuel and Noah Brown is the number 2, that's a big, tick down for, hey, someone who we want to see that kind of sophomore rise, and just the connection that he had with Terry last year. So that also, I think, should kind of take a hit as well with Jaden.
FantasyMojo.com, which is where we follow all the FFPC ADP. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes Challenge, a guy that we would strongly encourage that you subscribe to his website if you play in the FFPC for incomparable knowledge here. Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 18 at the 406, is his ADP in the FFPC best ball tournament over the course of the last 30 days. He obviously, as Justin has pointed out, he has fallen a little bit, but there is a dip coming. And we will see what happens with McLaurin going forward here. Speaking of dips, Justin, let's talk about the Texans running backs here. Jordan Schultz, once again, from FoxSports.com, reported earlier this week that Joe Mixon is going to miss multiple weeks of training camp. Schultz says that the goal for the Texans and Joe Mixon is to be ready by week 1, but he's probably going to be missing all, or most of, if not all, of training camp here. Mixon was pretty good last year. I believe he was in the top 10 of running backs for points per game. He's another year older. Obviously, he's dealing with this ankle injury that he suffered in the offseason. And the Texans drafted Woody Marks. They have also signed Nick Chubb. So I don't know if these are red flags. Maybe they're yellow flags with how you're dealing with this right now. Joe Mixon, again, this is antiquated ADP. But when we look at the FFPC best ball tournament and where he is going, running back 25 on average at the 6'10 over the last 30 days. However, Justin, he has gone as low as the 805. Given this news that we're getting out of Houston right now, given that Nick Chubb and Jaquavius, a.k.a. Woody Marks, are in Houston, where is the right time where you start looking at drafting Joe Mixon in best ball tournaments right now?
Yeah, so if we look at what has happened with the Texans this offseason, I think you actually have a good amount of green flags to begin with where they only bring in Nick Chubb. They could have brought in J.K. Dobbins. They could have brought in a younger guy like Rico Dowdle. Like, there were a lot of options out there, but they're like, no, we're happy. We're only going to bring in Nick Chubb, where Nick Chubb, literally the least explosive runs last year. He's not the same since the injury. Okay, that's not a threat. Then you draft Woody Marks. Woody Marks profiles as a third down back, maybe like a Dare Ogunbowale replacement. Again, not really a major threat to Joe Mixon. He wasn't even catching that many passes in that offense. That's not really what we're counting on him in this, later part of his career. So I don't even consider Woody Marks as a red or yellow flag. Like, it wasn't a bad thing again. But the big news was they put him on the NFI with this injury, which tells you that it's not just a typical injury that, we know what's going on. We're content. This is a football related injury. This tells you something is actually going on behind the scenes, either something Joe Mixon did on his own, something he did off the field, something he did proactive to address his own injury, whatever it is, it's not a good thing. And so when the team didn't do anything to plan for this and then take such a hard right turn to put him on the NFI and the comments that we're hearing out of it, as well as kind of the murmurs around it, he is as close to the do not draft list as I pretty much exists for me. And that's so rare for me because I'm a value drafter. In my mind, there's always a point that like someone is worth drafting. But for Joe Mixon, like, I'm scared. Like, if I'm scared how many games he's going to play this year. I think he's definitely not going to be out there at the beginning of the year. I think that may linger until halfway in the season. And there's a chance that he doesn't even play another down for the Texans. Like, I'm very concerned. So from a game theory aspect, yes, there is a way where, there's a time where it's like, I'm worth taking that chance because we need to be humble about our opinions. And so maybe it for me is like the 12th round or something, but 13th, 14th, I don't know. There's not really a time that I've seen that I've even been on the clock that I've had to make that decision because, as you said, the latest he's gone is 806. Someone else is scooping him up before me.
Let me ask you this. We'll play a quick would you rather here, Justin. Would you rather have, and again, this is, I'm going into the double digit rounds here. 11-10, you're on the clock. Would you rather have Joe Mixon or Ramondre Stevenson?
Ramondre.
Would you rather have Joe Mixon or Tank Bigsby?
I think I'd go Joe Mixon at that point. In my mind, maybe it's that Rashad White area. Maybe it's the guys who have that contingency upside. I mean, they have the standalone, but also contingency. That's probably about where it is. And that's probably 12th round, maybe. Yeah.
You're looking at 12th round. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
The last one I'll ask you, and only because he's in the news in a positive way here out of Dallas, would you rather draft Joe Mixon or Jaden Blue right now? You don't know. It's tough.
All right. So my answer there would be like, hey, if this is a new contest that like ADP doesn't matter, I think I'd rather have Jaden Blue. Like if I'm doing a redraft league, like Jaden Blue, if I'm doing a standalone one, but for a tournament like FFPC that it's been open that you already have, like if Mixon hits, you're getting him at such good value compared to all the other teams that drafted him so far ahead. I probably would go with the Joe Mixon just because if anything, you're also drafting Jaden Blue at either the same price that he's been going or more expensive. So from a game theory aspect, I probably go Joe Mixon there, but like, yeah, it's close. I'm scared.
Yeah, I am scared too. And like, it's funny because I've gone back and forth on this in the drafts I've been doing where I feel like, oh, have I waited long enough? Have I not waited long enough with Mixon? It's one of those things where I don't know there's a perfect answer. It's just, you kind of got to feel it out for yourself. And in the same vein of not knowing what's going on with running backs right now, let's go to Cleveland, mother of God.
Oh, here. And
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I think is interesting. So you have on the screen there my FFN60. What it is a newsletter specifically for fantasy football. But yesterday or 2 days ago, I asked if Joe Mixon is out for the season, where would Nick Chubb most likely, like where would you be willing to draft him the highest? And we were seeing 7th, 8th round as like the core area where people were saying I would draft Nick Chubb. And I thought that was really interesting because like for me personally, I don't want much to do with Nick Chubb. Like last year he was so bad. As I mentioned, like he literally had the worst explosive runs rate out of any running backs. It was 4th worst out of any player with barely beating out like a couple QBs. You have 29 years old coming off the ACL. Like Woody Marks, they did trade a 3rd rounder to actually get him this year. If there was someone in that backfield, like that's the player that I think is the actual opportunity because he's still going near the end of drafts. So, yeah, I just wanted to put the bow on that. Like Woody Marks is probably one. And I had Evan Silva on one of my podcasts today. I think he has Woody Marks all the way up to like 103 or something like that in his top 150.
I've always said, Justin, it's a young man's game. So when I'm not sure, I don't go with the 29-year-old who is coming off multiple consecutive season-ending knee injuries, right? I don't particularly love Woody Marks. But I also understand what Houston has going down there, which is not a lot. And the other thing that we haven't really talked about, how does the Houston offensive line play into this whole Texans conversation, knowing that they traded Laramie Tunsil and their offensive line is markedly, worse than it was in 2024?
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at like a running, I mean, Nick Chubb's never been a back that's catching a lot of balls. So you could see a world where even if it was Joe Mixon, like, if Joe Mixon's healthy, he still like has enough of a skill set to be an effective back. Like I think he was actually a pretty decent pick around that kind of was the end of 5th, early 6th round before all this stuff came out because it was just he's just going to repeat what he did last year. But if he's out, you have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is not going to start catching passes at this point in his career, so you may actually see more opportunity with that poor offensive line. Use a zone scheme. Use more getting Woody Marks into space.
I want to, and by the way, Matt Deutsch, our producer tonight, the man behind the glass, said he moved Joe Mixon for the number 8 overall pick in his rookie draft, and he's feeling good about it. You should. And quite frankly, this is Justin, and I don't know how heavy a dynasty guy you are, but in one of my dynasty leagues last year, I was trying to trade all my 27 and 28-year-old running backs, and I moved Mixon last year, for the number 9 overall pick in my rookie draft. I got Trey Benson out of it. It obviously didn't work out last year. Will it work out this year? I don't know. We'll find out. From Nick Chubb's current employer in Houston, let's go to his former employer in Cleveland. Daniel Oyefusi, who covers the Cleveland Browns, said that Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, was quoted as saying that he's cautiously optimistic that Quinshon Judkins is going to play for the Browns in 2025. I'm going to repeat that for everybody. This is a guy they drafted in the 2nd round. And here on July 31st, 2025, the owner of the team is cautiously optimistic that his 2nd-round player is going to play for the Browns sometime this season. This is not great. They have Jerome Ford there, who seems to be running with the ones. They doubled up on both quarterback and running back in the draft, Justin. After they took Judkins, they also drafted Dylan Sampson. When you're drafting all these best ball teams, what's the proper way for people to be handling this Browns situation? Because I don't have a good answer when people ask me right now.
Yeah, and I think Haslam also said like he hasn't been in touch with him for a month. So it kind of shows that like, hey, as your role as the owner is more of just kind of a bit more hands off, like you're not getting in the weeds here. So the cautiously optimistic, it kind of tells me he's a bit more removed from the situation. So he's not going to be able to give like that much of an answer. But I think if you look at kind of, the facts around the case, if you look at what happened with their second round pick last year, there's a bit of a precedent set that domestic violence is very different than what the Rashee Rice and Jordan Addison situations were. Like DUIs and street racing, like those are handled differently. The league lets those play out in court. Domestic violence, the league will say, hey, we're going to actually intervene. We're going to do our own investigation, and we'll put you on the commissioner's exempt list if we feel that it's appropriate. And obviously him not signing the contract yet, the commissioner's exempt list, they don't even actually have to do anything yet because they're going to let the Browns are likely talking to the league and kind of deciding how this best plays out. Now, what do we do as fantasy aspects? This isn't the injury of Joe Mixon. So if the Quinshon Judkins things can work out, like he can come back in week 6, week 7, whatever it is, he's going to be healthy. He's going to be like in shape. He's going to be able to get that role. But the challenge is he's missing all of this preseason time. Yeah. They're going to build an offense that doesn't feature him. And what's really the difference between the second rounder and fourth rounder when the second rounder has missed out on so much of this time? Like, I think that my perspective is that, like, yes, they made that trade for the Travis Hunter, and that second round pick that they got, Quinshon Judkins, was a major part of it. So like, they do want that pick to work out, but that doesn't mean the coach, that doesn't mean the staff are going to force it this season. If Dylan Sampson actually proves like, hey, he's a solid talent, like as a prospect, he was good. He wasn't anywhere near the level of kind of the Quinshon Judkins, especially post combine. But like, he was still a pretty solid prospect. And so I think he's going to get the chance alongside Jerome Ford to actually show, like, can he earn this role? And if he can, even if Quinshon Judkins comes back in week 7, week 8, whatever it is, like, there's no guarantee that, like, I think he's either going to compete for that role and have to show it on the field that he actually earns it, or it's going to be a three-man backfield. Like, I think that Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford are still values at where they are right now, particularly Dylan Sampson, because we know who Jerome Ford is, but Dylan Sampson could actually say, hey, earn a major part of that load. And Jerome Ford had to take a cheaper contract or, renegotiate that contract just to stay with the team. So like, it's not like they're that excited about him. He's kind of just there because they need him this year, especially at the Judkins thing. So Dylan Sampson, I'm most bullish on, but I think Jerome Ford at his spot is still pretty good value.
So I think it's interesting. Is there a possibility? We often see this with receivers in best ball drafts, rookie receivers specifically, where they come on at the end of the season. Could we see a come on for Quinshon Judkins if he joins the team, sometimes in October, early November, where he has those fresh legs? Excuse me. He has those fresh legs, and he's coming on late in December to really help people in those money weeks in best ball tournaments, Justin. I mean, like, the thing is, I don't know if the free fall has stopped with Judkins right now. If you look at where he's going in the FFPC best ball tournament, again, it's running back 39. He's falling into the 11th round right now. At some point, he becomes a value. Where does he become a value for you, knowing what he's capable of?
Yeah, I think the other challenge with kind of these type of tournaments it is a lot easier. They move a lot quicker for players to rise up because you only need one of the 12 people in the draft room to say, hey, I want this. And they're actually kind of concerned someone else is going to take them. So I'm willing to reach. So if someone's kind of skyrocketing up boards, they'll do it quickly. When someone falls, it happens so much slower because out of the 12 people, you only need one to say, hey, I'm going to grab this value. Or maybe it's an auto pick and they don't even get there. So like, I do agree that yes, there is going to be a point where these guys, the Joe Mixon, the Quinshon Judkins, any of the injured ones, maybe the suspension ones, like, they become a value, but it takes a long time. And more often than not, if you start buying, you're buying too early and you're just really kind of catching that falling knife. So for me, if I had to say, like, where do I think it falls or where do I think the right value is for him? It's past Joe Mixon. It's past Jadon Blue. Like, there's just no, because as you were saying, like, there's just no guarantee that the team is going to be like, hey, we're so excited you're back. And also you're so much better than this other running back who's been running really well for us. So we're just going to give you that starting job. I think more likely than not, like, he's going to take some of the work and they're going to kind of feel it out. But it's also at the running back position, it's not that easy to see, like, hey, who is truly the better player just from a kind of small sample size results. At wide receiver, we see like the breakouts, but a lot of that's because those players are on the field. The number one indicator for a breakout for a young wide receiver is snaps, just them being on the field. And so with him likely missing so much time, that's my major concern.
You have to weigh everything when it comes to this with the Browns backfield. And speaking of weighing everything, we're going to do that as we take our first break of the night. When we come back, the FFPC Best Ball Tournament has started. We're covering a live draft tonight. 12 owners are going for a $300,000 grand prize. Myself and Justin Herzig from Established Run, FFN60.com, is going to be covering this. We'll give our analysis on what we like, what we don't like, and what these owners are doing. When we come back, you're watching FFPC Insider Access exclusively on the Better Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. We got a ton more to go, including a live draft as live draft coverage on the FFPC family of podcasts rolls on this week.
What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm. And boy, do I have great news for you. It's that time of year. The FFPC main event is open. The flagship contest, in my opinion, the biggest number one contest in all of fantasy football. It's not just about the prizes. You can win $1 million, but if you win a contest like this, you are gold-plated, gold stamped in this community. That puts respect on your name when you go in there with the big dogs and you win a tournament like this. So get set up with my FFPC now. When you use promo code ALARM, they'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more if you've never drafted there before. And you can get in there with the big dogs. If you really want, you can actually go to Vegas and draft at the Paris Casino live in these contests. You don't have to do that, though. You can draft online. They have 6-hour, 2-hour, and 60-second clocks, depending on what you're feeling. You're going to want to draft early and often in these to give yourself the best possible shot at winning. And let me tell you, when you go over to your social media bio and you throw FFPC main event champion in there, people start thinking about you at a different way. You are now an absolute champion and legend in this community if you win the FFPC main event. Open now over at myffpc.com.
The FFPC Insider Access Show rolls on here on the Better Sports Network. I am joined tonight by Justin Herzig from Established Run, FFN60.com. You know what's funny about this? Not funny, Justin, but you're putting together a great newsletter that I have signed up for, and I'm excited for it. This is something that, and we'll give you a chance to plug this later too. This is something you, as a guy who is a best ball savant, a very successful fantasy football player, like, you know what? This does not exist in the space. I'm just going to create it. Tell us more about FFN60.com.
Yeah, it actually started about 6 months ago when I had my first kid. And so I have a daughter now, just over 6 months. And shortly after that, I realized I just cannot spend all my day just doom scrolling and reading the news on Twitter. And so I need something that, like, hey, when I wake up in the morning, can you just give me the recap? What do I need to know from the day before? Because I'm still doing a lot of drafts. I'm still doing a lot of best ball. So I got to stay up to date on the information, but I can't afford to just live my life on the computer. And it didn't exist. So I was like, okay, screw it. I'm going to go build it myself. And so FFN60, the idea being, we'll give you everything you need to know in the next day in just 60 seconds. So when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like you missed out on the most important information. Ended up, running it out for like the small group for about a week or two. Got a lot of really good feedback. Started incorporating things like my takes in there for how I'm, accounting for that player, how I'm drafting, what I think is important, what's not, and running from there. But yeah, appreciate it. And FFN60.com. It's free. It's daily. Try it out.
If anybody is looking for something like where, because listen, we all subscribe to different services or what have you, but if you can get something that recaps everything in 60 seconds, I mean, my God, Sigmund Bloom from Football Guy says this all the time. Time is the most precious thing we have on this planet. Justin Herzig is fixing that for us with FFN60.com. So make sure you're signing up for that. Our producer and friend, Matt Deutsch, who is pushing all the right buttons. Matt, can you put the draft board up there we go. We got it. Okay, perfect. So this is the draft board we have for the FFPC Best Ball Tournament going on right now tonight. I'm going to take you through the first round. Justin and I are going to give our live analysis of this as well. So picking first tonight is Jason Cooper, ElCidCoop. He takes Jamar Chase at the 101. Not really a big surprise there, nor was Jason Kulaga's pick at Bijan or for Bijan Robinson at the 102. Jacob Ellis ends up going with Saquon Barkley at the 103. I'm going to ask you about that in a second here, Justin, because I think that's interesting. Henrything is possible. That is the co-owners of Chance Mo, and KEEM Star. They take Brock Bowers. Again, tight end premium format with the FFPC, so you're going to get 1.5 points per catch for Bowers. I'm going to ask Justin about that in a second. McCaffrey moves all the way up to the 105 to Brent Studebaker, StudDynasty there. Jesus is King, 777. That's Billy Boone squad. He gets Jahmyr Gibbs at the 106. CeeDee Lamb goes to Keeb's Cookie Monsters. Ryan Imler squad at the 107. Ashton Genty off the board to Matthew Pfleger's team. The rookie from Las Vegas goes at the 108 tonight. Followed by Malik Neighbors to Balky's Halloween Candy, Paul Teixeira and Peter Puzzo. They've been on my podcast before. Appreciate that for sure. At the 109, naming their team name after me, my Halloween Candy, what have you, Malik Neighbors. There you go. Justin Jefferson to GnawinBB, Best Ball, 731. Dimitrios Gikas takes Justin Jefferson there. Puka Nacua, the penultimate pick of the first round at the 111 here to Joel 30, that is Robert Lipkin, and then Peter Masterson, BK Worldwide, goes with Amon-Ra St. Brown to close out the first round. Let's go back and look at the 103 here from Jacob Ellis, Justin. Saquon Barkley, a guy who's had a ton of carries over the course of his career, especially in 2024. I have said this, Wyatt Bertolome was on this show from Player Profiler, and I said Saquon Barkley is the poster child for the player I'm too scared to draft, but I'm also too scared not to draft him. How do you handle Saquon Barkley when he's staring you in the face at the 103 in best ball drafts right now?
Yeah, I believe that picks 2 to 6, or in this format with tight end premium, picks 2 to 7 are very flat. And, if you're going to do enough of them, it probably makes sense to mostly just kind of, hey, unless you have really strong stands, try to balance them a bit. For me personally, I think that Saquon, in most formats is probably my number 2 overall player behind Jamar Chase. Yes, I hear, you see the stats around. If you have X amount of carries, I think it's 400 carries, like you're this much more likely to get hurt the next year. It's more of any running back that is projected for a ton of volume is likely to get hurt. It's a dangerous game. It's hard for running backs. But if you're going to tell me that I am going to fade a player because they're likely to get a lot of volume, like that's just not the game I'm playing. And so then it gets down to nitty gritty between Saquon and Bijan. Now, Bijan's going to have more catches. Saquon's going to have more touchdowns. I think Tyler Algier is a much better player than anyone that Philly has in the backfield besides Saquon, like Shipley or AJ Dillon. So you can maybe tell me a story that there's a tiny bit more kind of risk with the Bijan that he just, maybe gets a little hurt and they don't want to give him as much of a workload, and you have a competent back in Algier. So I like the Saquon. I think the biggest shock for me here is Justin Jefferson going all the way at 10. He should still be back week 1. There's a slight re-injury risk because of a soft tissue type injury, but I think at 10, even though it is only 2 wide receivers in FFPC, it's still a really strong pick.
I want to talk about Jefferson in a second. Regarding the Barkley thing in the comments you made, when you talk about 2 through 7 being very flat, how high, the guys that went behind him tonight, Bowers, McCaffrey, Gibbs, Lamb, etc., how high would you be taking Barkley, knowing what we know about volume the previous year? Would you have taken Barkley in tonight's draft at 103, or would you have gone a different way?
Either Barkley or Bowers, probably.
Okay.
I think that Bowers is as good as pick of any with the tight end premium aspect. It's funny because my perception, or I don't know, my perspective on Bowers differs so much from site to site. Like if you go all the way to the sites that are half PPR with no tight end premium, I'm fading the elite tight end, specifically Bowers, McBride. Then you go all the way the more extreme to FFPC with the tight end premium. Now I want to boost them up that much more because it's interesting. Like you look at Brock Bowers and you look at Trey McBride, and the biggest knock on them, it's touchdowns. You have Las Vegas, not going to score that many touchdowns. Also, you have Ashton Genty they invested in, so they're going to rush more inside the red zone. Cardinals, Trey McBride, whether it's a fluke or not, college pros, he just hasn't scored that many touchdowns. But when you're talking 1.5 points premium, that doesn't matter. And so their ability to really differentiate from the rest of the field, that makes them just elite picks.
I want to explore the McBride discussion in a little bit, but before we get to that, Christian McCaffrey at the 105, we have seen some bold people take Christian McCaffrey. I know Brian Drake from Fantasy Points took him at the 101 in the Scott Fish Bowl. When you talk about McCaffrey, I think Ben Gretsch was saying this, and I'm attributing this quote to Ben Gretsch. I could be wrong on this, so I apologize if somebody else had it. But he said, sometimes I think in these national tournaments like this, where you're going up against thousands of other people, sometimes I think the right question to ask is, as far as McCaffrey goes, we shouldn't be asking what happens if this guy gets hurt. We should be asking what happens if this guy doesn't get hurt. And clearly, Brent Studebaker, who takes McCaffrey at the 105, is asking himself, well, what happens if McCaffrey doesn't get hurt? Because he selects him with a premium pick tonight. I know you are a volume drafter, obviously, with all your leagues you're in. What have you been doing with McCaffrey this year? Is that too high of a reach at the 105 for McCaffrey?
Yeah, so let's root back to Ben Gretchen, bring out the Establish the Edge series where Ben Gretchen and Mike Leone go through their projections, and they had a really good conversation with Christian McCaffrey, where both of them are pretty much in agreement. Like, if you actually give Christian McCaffrey like the real projection, not docking for the injuries, he should be the 1.01. And if you think through like what we've seen where Christian McCaffrey, the efficiency of that offense, he still has the explosiveness, the amount of pass catching that he's getting, like all of those things, him and Barkley, him versus Bijan, like those aren't even a question. But we do have to account for the age. We do have to account for coming off of the injuries from last year. We do have to account for kind of those risks. And even at that point, and this is, I think Leone actually on Man vs. Machine for 7 Silver earlier today was said, like, even accounting for all that, he still has him at number 7, which is just past those kind of the Jahmyr Gibbs and the other running backs. So I completely get it. Hey, playing for that upside, I think I still have Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of him at this point, because I think like you can tell yourself a story that they both have similar upsides, but the risk on Gibbs is substantially lower from an age and injury aspect. But I'm not going, for me, before the NFL draft and all those kind of pre-draft contests, McCaffrey was going mid-early second, and that's when I was completely hammering. And I'm still willing to kind of hammer, I'd say, up until kind of that number 7 spot, or in this format, it's probably 7 or 8.
We were talking about this when I was covering Pros versus Joes this past Tuesday on the FFPC YouTube channel. And I said, 10 times out of 10, I'm taking Gibbs over McCaffrey. And then I got some pushback about that, both on the chat and some other feedback. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to rethink this. Yeah, it's fine to take maybe Gibbs more often than not over McCaffrey, but 10 times out of 10, probably an overkill. And I have corrected that. I think I can understand why people would be taking McCaffrey over Gibbs. Now, here's something that I think you and I both share. I don't understand how Justin Jefferson falls tonight to the 110. GnawinBB ends up taking him. That's Dimitrios Gikas. He grabs Justin Jefferson. It's the latest I've seen him go, Justin. I have not seen him go later than the 110. Fantastic value there tonight. Where would you have taken him had you had a first-round pick? How high would Justin Jefferson have gone? Have you been in this draft?
Probably number 8, because I am taking CeeDee Lamb ahead of Justin Jefferson right now with the injury news. Before that, he was my number 2 overall pick. But again, that's because in my mind, the gap between 2 and 6 or 2 and 7 in this format is so thin. It's very small margins. For that Gibbs and McCaffrey thing that you were talking about, what are their ADPs? Because does that mean that you would have had to reach Gibbs over McCaffrey? Because if you take him 10 out of 10 times, but he's always going above McCaffrey, you're still going to be able to get a good amount of McCaffrey. I think that's kind of an important discussion point too.
I'll just bring this up right now. The FFPC ADP on the best ball tournament for those 2 players right now over the last 30 days, which I know is kind of skewed a little bit. Gibbs goes on average at the 104. McCaffrey goes on average at the 108. So most of the time Gibbs is going, but I listen, I don't, and I caught myself a little bit when I was talking about this on Tuesday. Justin, I don't know about you. I don't like to speak in absolutes. I always like to leave myself an out there, because I understand that even if I strongly believe in a player or don't believe in a player, I understand for the opportunity that I could be wrong. Like we're wrong all the time in this kind of thing. So I understand how that works via Gibbs and McCaffrey. Moving on to the second round here, Trey McBride is the first selection of the second round. I said we're going to get back to this. BK Worldwide ends up grabbing him at the 201. BK Worldwide, Peter Masterson's team here from the 12 spot. McBride had 2 touchdown catches last year. They were both late in the season. He had a 3rd touchdown where he ran it in, which was also late in the season. You brought this up, and I think this is interesting. McBride did not score a lot of touchdowns in college either. So while touchdowns are not a sticky stat, and you say, oh my God, McBride, look at what he did last year. He's going to have when the touchdowns balance out this year, he's going to be a steal in the second round in FFPC tight end premium formats with all these touchdowns. I don't know. Like now I'm of the opinion that I don't know if these touchdowns are coming from this year for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe you know, but McBride has not found himself in the end zone over the course of his professional and collegiate career.
Yeah, it's normally pretty wonky from a touchdown. Like it normally normalizes across seasons, but it definitely is a bit weird with him. What definitely is helpful is he still had a ton of red zone targets, both early on when it was normally playing, and then eventually when it was like, okay, we have to get him a touchdown. We just kept kind of peppering him. And maybe that actually is like, all right, now we're forcing it a bit too much. So some of those red zone targets are kind of discredited a bit. But I don't think I'm willing to accept that, like, hey, he's just not for whatever reason. And if you think of late career Julio Jones with Atlanta, it was a similar thing. Maybe it was the way that teams were covering on him. Maybe it was something about the player, but like just did not have that many touchdowns. But then one year he broke out, and the talent that we know of Julio and that touchdown kind of narrative just disappeared. I'm not expecting Trey McBride to completely break out and have like a 10 touchdown year, but it's very fair to assume that, hey, that 2 touchdowns from last year regresses to something more like 5 or 6. But we also know even if it doesn't, he can still surpass his value just on volume being the primary. Like for him to not work out, not counting for injury, you really need one of 3 things, or probably 2 of these 3 things to happen. One is like the entire offense falls apart. Kyler's just not that guy. And, I don't think this is a contract year, but I think there's some kind of interesting contract where like there's an out after this year and they say like, okay, this isn't it. Number 2 is Marvin Harrison really just surpasses and becomes the true alpha, takes like a 28% target share, which brings Trey McBride back down to earth. Even in that world, you still probably get a better touchdown aspect for Trey McBride because the offense is more efficient. So like that doesn't even completely kill him. Or the third one is just a Trey McBride, like comes back down to earth. It's just like things just, it's really those 2. And so I'm just trying to think through like the worst case scenario, how it falls apart is not that likely, but you can very much imagine, okay, he still keeps his relative target concentration and we throw on some touchdowns.
Shout out to Philip Hooton, the 2020 FFPC main event champ, hanging out in the chat with us tonight, talking about Saquon Barkley, talking about Trey McBride. Always good to hear from that dude. Bullseye, as it were. Devon Achane was the pick after Trey McBride tonight, Justin. Achane has been building up some steam over the last couple of weeks with a lot of pundits and a lot of FFPC players as well, drafting this guy based on, hey, there's a non-zero chance he finishes as RB1 this year over Robinson, over Barkley, over Christian McCaffrey, over Gibbs, all those guys. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because the Dolphins offense was awesome down the stretch last year for Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. It was not awesome for Tunga Vailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. How do you think this Dolphins offense is going to go this year? And when I ask you that, I think it's going to dictate how you feel about Devon Achane in 2025 drafts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Devon Achane, it's a story of Tua and no Tua. I mean, if you were to isolate the games and just when he played with Tua, I think his points per game were RB1. And if not there, it was extremely close to the RB1. That is, especially in best ball when we're playing for upside, hey, if you take Achane, take Tua later on and just hope that Tua stays healthy and this should work out. Last year, it was a wonky offense. The offensive line was atrocious. Whether Tyreek and the wrist injury, we don't really know what happened with the Waddle, but like it's pretty clear they played the kind of gimmicky style of very short passes behind or at the line of scrimmage, and that's why Jonnu and Devon Achane got so much volume. Jonnu gone, Achane's still going to get that volume, and now hopefully the offensive line is still not going to be great, but we can expect some positive regression to actually be like, if they can even be like below, in the below average to not just league lowest, you can maybe see some inside rushing efficiency for Devon Achane of what we saw 2 years ago. So for me, I think I even put a tweet out at the end of last year. Like it wouldn't shock me if Devon Achane ended up being like the RB1 this year, just because of the extreme levels of volume that he gets in the receiving game. And, that efficiency speed that we saw in his rookie season. You can combine that efficiency, speed, explosiveness in rookie year with the volume that he got in year 2. And if both those are still possible, then yeah, he definitely has that RB1 possibility.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes for the Dolphins this year as well. It's not like they have an elite tough schedule based on where they finished last year, but I'm very excited to see what happens with the Dolphins offense this year, and we'll get to Tyreek Hill in a little bit. But Devon Achane going at that 1-2 turn, you never know. That's where Barkley was going last year, and he ended up winning a lot of people a lot of money last year. Could Achane be that guy this year? Non-zero chance of it for sure. Kyren Williams tonight goes at the 302 to Jason Kulaga, who has started off his draft with Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, and Kyren Williams from the 2 spot tonight. Kyren Williams is a guy that I don't know, Justin. I don't want to say I've doubted him the last few years, but I've always left open the possibility of like, well, God, they got Blake Corum, and now this year they've got Jarquez Hunter. I can't remember who was pointing this out. I was listening to some podcast, and they said like, listen, it's Sean McVay. He's going to go with one guy. He's not going to go with these other guys unless there's an injury at all. They're already talking extension for Kyren Williams, and knowing how good the Rams could be this year, knowing that they're going to contend for a division title, maybe more than that, maybe an NFC title, maybe even a Super Bowl championship. Is Kyren Williams being faded too much by FFPC players? Tonight he goes at the 302 as the 12th running back off the board. Normally in the FFPC best ball tournament, he is going as running back 12 at the 306. So he actually gets drafted a little bit earlier than he normally does tonight. Your thoughts on Kyren Williams and what you're doing with him in your draft so far this season?
Yeah, I'm not getting much of Kyren because in my mind, the risk just does not account for the upside scenario. If you think through like, okay, he's the actual starting running back, gets the same level of workload that he got last year. I mean, what's his end of season value? Like a mid-second. So maybe you're getting like a little value on it, but then you think through of all the ways that this could go wrong for him. First off, he's not actually like an efficient, explosive runner. So doesn't have that kind. He needs the volume in games to actually make this work. So if he loses that volume, he misses out substantially on his value. How does he lose that volume? Well, okay, so we saw Blake Corum last year was taking kind of one drive each half. It would basically be like Kyren, I think it was like Kyren, Corum, and then Kyren the rest or something like that. But like, okay, so maybe Corum can do something, take a step up. But also you have Jarquez Hunter. And Jarquez Hunter, like he's probably not the direct handcuff to Kyren, but he definitely has a more explosive skill set. And it wouldn't be shocking to see him, eat into that volume as well. And so for me with the Kyren, like it's just not that exciting of a talent. And there's substantial risk behind. And when you look at the other players that are going around him, like there are running backs that are being drafted after him. I'd rather have Breece Hall, even with all the Braylon Allen talk, because of the skill set and the receiving work that Breece Hall gets. I'd much rather have Omarion Hampton with the, chances are he's the week 1 starter and first round talent. And then a lot of these wide receivers as well.
What do you make of the Hampton pick here by Team 10 tonight? Getting him at, we in Pros versus Joes, we saw John Daigle from Establish the Run take him at, I want to say like the 210. And this is fresh off the Najee Harris like injury news. Like there was no update and there was no timeline, and it was looking grim, quite frankly, for Harris. You see Omarion Hampton go off the board tonight at the 310. Is that a spot you'd be looking at for him in best ball leagues this year, Justin? Or would you actually look at him earlier right now?
Yeah, and so I saw that comment with Stafford too. That's another thing with the Kyren. If Stafford's back is not good, that also kills Kyren because he needs the volume and he needs the touchdowns. Omarion Hampton, GnawinBB, I think is dominating this draft right now. Ooh. Getting Jefferson to fall to that 10 spot. I love Nico as well in that 2-3. And then, yes, Omarion Hampton, as I mentioned, like I would take him above Kyren Williams. I think where he goes right now, I think that's fine. I think I'd be willing to take him a little more. I think the mid to late third is a pretty flat territory. But in this type of tournament, we're playing for upside. We're looking for kind of what's going to be happening in those playoffs, those late season. And the big risk with Omarion Hampton was he's going to start off too slow because Najee Harris is a vet, former first rounder, going to have that kind of veteran deference. But I don't think Najee Harris is going to be out in the field. And even if he comes back in the next couple weeks, he's still on a new team. It's not like he's got the experience of the system, of the team, of the connection, of the rapport from previous years. Like this is still a new team for him as well. So I think Najee has lost that kind of early lead. And Omarion Hampton is just going to run circles around him from a talent-wise. Like this is a Yeah, Ashton Genty was in a world of his own, but then Omarion Hampton was also in a tier of his own ahead of the other running backs in this class.
Brian T chiming in on YouTube. He says Omarion Hampton is a 2-3 turn guy by the end of August. I can get on board with that, Justin, but my biggest contention with that, I think it might happen before the end of August. We could see that based on this, if we don't get positive Harris news, like we could be looking at Omarion Hampton at the 2-3 turn earlier, or maybe in the mid-second, much earlier. Daigle took him last week at the 210. So we've already seen his ADP rise. At what point do you start considering Hampton, and how high do you think he's going to rise in ADP as we get closer and closer to the start of the 2025 season?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this draft right now, I'd still be taking Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins ahead of him. I'm still taking the Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving ahead of him, but I think Hampton's like right behind there. And yeah, if you wanted to move, because also, I mean, you got to shift a little bit because you only have to start 2 wide receivers. So Hampton, if you wanted to say, is willing to jump those T. Higgins and Tyreek. I still like Tyreek. I think Tyreek has a level, another gear that can really break open this tournament for you. That Henrything is possible. I think has a pretty strong team too. Just so much upside with those 3 players to start off. But yeah, Omarion Hampton, I think, yeah, I would not be shocked if he's 2-3 turn.
The 306 tonight by Jesus is King 777. That is the team tonight that is owned by Billy Boone. He grabs Garrett Wilson after grabbing Jahmyr Gibbs, after grabbing George Kittle. He gets Garrett Wilson here. So 2 elite offenses and then a non-elite offense, at least we think, with the Jets this year. What do you make of Garrett Wilson in drafts? I'll be honest with you, Justin. This is a player I feel like I need to get more of, and just for whatever reason I haven't. But you look at what he's done over the course of his short NFL career, it's been really, really good. He gets Justin Fields this year, new OC, new offense, new head coach, new everything. And I think maybe that's what I'm battling with right now, is I'm trying to figure out how good Wilson's going to be. I just don't have much to compare it from other than what he has done in the NFL under previous offenses, previous regimes, previous quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'd say I think he's a fine pick. I think that area of the draft, the mid to late third, everyone has their thorns. I mean, for Garrett Wilson, you expect there to just be a substantial amount of volume, because he's competing for targets against rookie Mason Taylor and Josh Reynolds. Like, he should just be peppered nonstop. But the other challenge is he's being peppered by Justin Fields, and that team is also going to run a ton. They're going to use both backs. So even though he probably has one of the highest target shares in the entire league, it's still on a team that's not going to throw that much, that's not going to score that many touchdowns. So there's nothing wrong with him, but I think that scenario, I can tell you a very similar scenario for JSN. I can tell you the Marvin Harrison one. They all have their thorns. So no, I think there's nothing wrong with the pick, but he's not someone that I'm going to be substantially overweight on.
Do you feel compelled, tonight, Billy Boone takes Garrett Wilson in the 3rd round, and we got 5 quarterbacks off the board. I'm not saying he's going to take Justin Fields here, but in your best ball drafts, do you feel compelled in those leagues where you do draft Garrett Wilson that you feel like you have to get Justin Fields, or is that not a must for you?
I wouldn't say it's a must, but I would say I like to. The benefit of it is you're not competing against anyone else to grab Justin Fields as a stack partner, because the next jet that goes is going to go in, actually, I don't exactly know where Mason Taylor goes. Right. I mean, it's still Teddy Pretty, but he's still probably pretty late.
Yeah.
But also people will take Justin Fields just, solo, naked, because he has that kind of rushing value. So he's a unique one. I'm rarely going to reach specifically for that. I'm probably thinking through, okay, I'd also be very content with Brock Purdy. You've got the George Kittle. I'm not huge on Matthew Stafford, but you at least have that as an out. So as I'm drafting, I'm continuing to kind of build myself stackable outs throughout the draft.
Justin, you mentioned Stafford here, and I want to bring this up with the Rams. Puka Nacua goes at the 111 tonight. Devontae Adams off the board at the 407 to Billy Boone here. At what point do you stop drafting Nacua and Adams this high? Although Adams was kind of a value tonight. At what point do you stop drafting these Rams receivers until you see Stafford on the field? At what point are you concerned about Stafford because he has not been practicing yet?
Yeah, so the general talk around the industry, and I think it might have been Jordan Rodriguez who's first said this, but they're going to have a scrimmage, and that's, Sean McVay doesn't play his starters in the preseason games, so that scrimmage is kind of the big one to keep an eye out for. Of, hey, is Matthew Stafford playing? Because that's kind of the last or real chance for Stafford to get game time, because he's not going to play in the preseason no matter what. So if he misses that, that's when maybe there's a bit more cause for concern. But also, Stafford has had back injuries pretty much every year. This is dated back so far. So it's not something I think we should be substantially worried. How have I adapted? Like, I think Puka, for me, was at that kind of pick 8, which was right after the McCaffrey, but the beginning of that next tier of wide receivers. I've now moved him back like behind Nico Collins, right around like Amon-Ra. But again, those 4 or 5 wide receivers are all very close. I'm just no longer saying that Puka's ahead of that tier. I think Puka's now mixed into that tier.
When you look at the back-to-back Chiefs receivers that we see tonight here between Gnawen and Balky's Halloween candy, that is, of course, Dimitrios, Gikas, and then Teixeira and Puzzo. Xavier Worthy at the 403, Rashee Rice at the 404. I've kind of come around on this. I don't want to say I would take Worthy at that spot, but I feel like, and I know I did like a week or so ago, take Rashee Rice in a KFFSC league where it's non-tight end premium and you got to start 3 wide receivers. And I kind of regretting the Rice pick that early. How have you been handling, and I guess we can bring Travis Kelce into this conversation, who Jason Kulaga took at the 411 tonight. The Chiefs passing game this year could be resplendent. Could be like this back to the past of Patrick Mahomes throwing, 35, 40, 45 touchdowns this year. He's got the talent. Hollywood Brown is back as well. When you consider Worthy, Rice, and Kelce, who all went in the 4th round of this draft tonight, do those represent to you buys, values, sells, players that you would not have drafted? I want to take this kind of wide scoping with those 3 players specifically, but as well as like the Chiefs passing game as a whole.
Yeah, I want to be bullish on the Chiefs passing game just because we know Patrick Mahomes has that talent. It just seems like the scheme and what their kind of goals have really been holding back from a fantasy standpoint. But I've got to say, 2 of these 3 guys went way, way earlier than I could have imagined. Travis Kelce going in the 4th round, and it's more of just like TJ Hawkinson, I would definitely take before Travis Kelce. I think the gap between Travis Kelce and the other tight ends that haven't gone yet is extremely close. And I'm not even sure Travis Kelce is at the top of that. He might be like, but barely, but it's mixed in. Rashee Rice, this doesn't seem like it's nearly accounting for the potential 4 to 6 game suspension that we're looking at. So I think that's probably a round too early. Xavier Worthy, I think right there is fine. I personally would rather have kind of Devontae Adams, maybe Mike Evans, but I think Xavier Worthy is perfectly fine in that range.
What about Devonta Smith there?
A little early for me. I think there's a lot of positives for Devontae Smith. He also is having a little back issues for the past couple of days. So that should, when you're doing these drafts and you're getting enough volume, when you have that kind of news pop up, you should kind of hold off and be like, maybe I can get a little falling value here at the least. The other is, if you can wait on Devontae Smith, I'd rather take him near the kind of 4-5 turn, because then you can give yourself a better chance at getting that Jalen Hurts to fall to you. Here, he took, Devontae Smith at the 4-9 or the 4-8. Jalen Hurts doesn't fall to him, and that's a stack that I think is a pretty strong one.
Matthew Pfleger grabs his 2nd running back here tonight at the 405, RJ Harvey. So he's got a pair of running backs that are both rookies to lead off his draft tonight. The addition of J.K. Dobbins threw some cool water on RJ Harvey's draft value, but I feel like he's starting to come back up a little bit. Your thoughts on Dobbins' impact on RJ Harvey, who is still going early in FFPC drafts right now, Justin?
Yeah, this RJ Harvey price feels like what it should be if Dobbins wasn't there. When with Dobbins getting there, I think it's actually like more than a thorn. I think Dobbins is a pretty competent back. The risk is, as the year goes on, like, does Dobbins kind of wear down and become less efficient? That's what we saw last year. But maybe that risk is mitigated because you're going to be sharing with RJ Harvey. Yes, RJ Harvey had an explosive run that turned heads in practice. We expect that. He is a really strong talent. But I don't believe that Denver is going to want to go to just a single man. Like Peyton, we've seen Sean Payton in the past and the way that he kind of runs his offenses. I believe it's going to be kind of a 1-2 punch. Now, where should RJ Harvey go? I think it's pretty fair to put him in that Travion Henderson, Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner tier. Like, that's all pretty flat. I've got Travion Henderson probably at the top of that, just, especially in a PPR style. But it feels like a round or so early for RJ Harvey, in my opinion.
Getting back to the Travion Henderson conversation, who went at the 505 tonight as running back 19 to Brent Studebaker's squad from the 5 hole to go with Christian McCaffrey in his backfield. Those are his top 2 running backs. The impact of Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is I don't know. I don't want to say, like, everybody knew he was still there, but I just feel like Henderson's been slipping a little bit because people are like, God, Stevenson is still there. Gibson is still there. You're not concerning yourself with those other Patriots running backs as much as Henderson?
I mean, that's why he's going in the middle 5th or late 5th compared to the Omarion Hampton, middle of the 3rd. Like, that is baked in. The hope is, first off, Travion Henderson is probably the 2nd most explosive back of the rookie class behind Ashton Genty. And from an explosive standpoint, may actually be higher. Genty's better at a lot of other things, but from a pure open space standpoint, like, that's Travion Henderson's skill set. And so, attached to a Drake May offense where there's not a lot of kind of clear pass catchers in that offense, like, there's definitely opportunity. He could rack up the volume in there. You don't want to make the whole James White kind of comparison in the past, but, like, it's possible that they really game plan for him being a weapon in that offense. That's kind of the expectation. Now, if Ramondre, they just decide, hey, Ramondre's had fumbling issues in the past. Maybe they want to give him less work. Maybe we see how good Travion Henderson is, and we want to give him a bit more of a workhorse. Like, he has the upside that I think some of the other running backs, it's harder for them to get to. And when you compare RJ Harvey to Travion Henderson, it's far more likely in my mind that Travion Henderson dusts Ramondre Stevenson than RJ Harvey dusts J.K. Dobbins.
The question that our producer has thrown up on the board tonight from Christopher Davis on YouTube. Christopher, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Any concerns that RJ Harvey's pass blocking is pretty bad, and that's blocking against bad college defenses. This goes into the whole J.K. Dobbins conversation. We saw positive reports about Audric Estime today. Not saying they should be targeting these guys, but certainly take some of the shine off of RJ Harvey. But when you look at what Christopher is saying here about his pass blocking, does that concern you at all when you talk about what tier he should be drafted in here, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think pass blocking is usually the most difficult thing for rookies and kind of keeps them off the field. For the J.K. Dobbins split, like, if he just, I actually think it's not as concerning because we're not expecting him to kind of be there as the workhorse, as that 3rd down back. And so if he doesn't have that pass blocking kind of skill set, they can kind of just say, hey, okay, we're going to give this to J.K. Dobbins and we're going to give RJ Harvey a little more run in other plays because they still spent a 2nd round draft pick on AJ Harvey. There's still a lot of things you like about him. So while, like, yes, being a bad pass blocker is not good, especially for a rookie, it's not as concerning as it would be for some of the other kind of rookies that are out there. Like, I think Caleb Johnson being a bad pass blocker, I think that's really bad for him. And, there's the whole Aaron Rodgers kind of combination aspect, but I think it's a Jaylen Warren strength of his skill set and things like, yeah.
I've actually been, interesting you bringing that up. I've been drafting a lot of Jaylen Warren as my number 3 running back in a lot of leagues, a lot of drafts so far this year because, not specifically because of that, but because of Rodgers, how much he has checked down to running backs over the years. You think about how integral Aaron Jones was in those Packers offenses with Rodgers at the helm. And I think Jaylen Warren could definitely fulfill that role this year as well. Let's go to James Conner here, who went at the 5-12 tonight. BK Worldwide ends up drafting Conner as his number 2 running back. That is Peter Masterson. It's interesting. I've not targeted James Conner so far this year, Justin, but I feel like I've been getting him as my number 2, sometimes my number 3 running back. He's old. He's got Trey Benson behind him, but I feel like we could still squeeze some juice out of him in 2025. Do you see it the same way with Conner in Arizona?
I mean, obviously you've got some bias because of the Trey Benson trick that you that you drafted for. Now, whether or not that makes you support James Conner or not, I'm not sure. But to be honest, it's been a roller coaster of coach speak for James Conner throughout this offseason, because early in the offseason, we were hearing, okay, Trey Benson, he's going to be a 1B to the James Conner 1A. He's going to, he's earned that opportunity. This is going to be a great 1-2 punch. And at that point, I'm scared of James Conner and I'm like bullish on Trey Benson. But then we start hearing, and now more recently, and it's kind of gone back and forth, back and forth. The most recent is like, no, James Conner is our guy. Like, he's going to be, the team's going to run through him. And for me, I'm more likely to kind of default to what I've seen the team do previously. And so last year, they love James Conner. He's still good. The numbers support that. And when you're actually in the game, like, they're going to trust James Conner. When they start saying they want to get more Trey Benson in, I'm willing to listen. But if we're not sure, and then we hear more about like, no, James Conner is the guy and he's going to kind of keep that workload, I'm going to take that with what we saw last year and say like, no, I think actually James Conner is a pretty good value at where he's being drafted these days. Because yeah, like, yes, he's on the older side, but he's still really good and that team loves him. So I just don't see Trey Benson as a legitimate risk barring injury.
We talked about the Dolphins earlier in regards to Achane and then obviously the departure of Jonnu Smith. But BK Worldwide, Peter Masterson's squad from the 12 hole, ends up drafting Jalen Waddle at the 601 tonight, 29th receiver off the board. This is another player I have not been targeting, Justin. I've found myself grabbing here. You think that's a bad choice? Do you think that this is a player that we should be avoiding? Or is this a player that like, hey, yeah, we should be getting shares of him in the 6th round of the FFPC best ball tournament?
And once more, sorry, who was that? I got distracted. The game just started.
Jalen Waddle from
Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Jalen Waddle is probably one of the most interesting ones. Very efficient, great yards per route run in his first couple seasons. Looked to be an ascending player, had a good connection with Tua, all the positives that we like to see, great prospect coming out. But then last year was just such an outlier. And so we can kind of say like, hey, it was an outlier for Tyreek. It was an outlier for the entire offense. Like, everything just kind of fell apart. And I wasn't willing to just throw away the season going into this year. Like, his games were so bad. Like, from a DFS angle, we were playing him and you were like getting two catches for 18 yards, like just killing your lineup. And so I was thinking like, I'm not willing to just throw away last year. Like, there's something more here. But once they got rid of Jonnu, that really changed my mind, because the team made it clear that they don't want to run that gimmicky style, low A dot behind the line of scrimmage through the tight end offense. If they want to win, if they want to be competitive, they need to use their wide receivers, because those are their top skill players, that nation. And so after that Jonnu trade, I'm now of the opinion like Jalen Waddle kind of becomes a personal target of mine, someone I really like to draft. And he still has substantial contingency upside, because if Tyreek, this wrist injury lingers, he gets hurt, he gets traded, he goes Antonio Brown in his head, who knows? Like, Jalen Waddle could literally be the entire receiving offense, and you could be talking about like 12 targets a game.
That's the crazy thing. And we're talking about a 6th round pick. So you have to weigh like, okay, well, is this worth it? Is this a player that I want to invest? And I shouldn't say a 6th round pick. He went in the 6th round tonight. If we look at Fantasy Mojo's website, normally going at, okay, 603. So roughly where he went tonight, you have to weigh like, okay, do I want to take Waddle here and bet on the upside? And, BK Worldwide with Peter Masterson, that's his number 2 wide receiver. Yes, you bet on that at that point, given he already has a tight end. He's already got 2 running backs. He's got his quarterback in Jaden Daniels as well. We'll get into more of his analysis, or more of our analysis on his team in a little bit, but I think that makes perfect sense there. I want to talk about Tyler Warren here, who ends up going at the 605, tight end 8 tonight. Justin, Tyler Warren, the reports on him coming out of training camp from the Colts beat reporters, it's like this guy is involved a ton. Every time the Colts are on offense, they're working it around with their first teamers. Tyler Warren is catching a lot of balls. Tyler Warren was a player at Penn State last year that was heavily integrated in their offense, but like passing, running, like he was doing it all. He was the Travis Hunter of the Big Ten essentially last year. when you consider Tyler Warren is a rookie this year, but we know that rookie tight ends over the last couple of years have really come on in their first seasons. Like, we don't have this redshirt season for tight ends. We don't have them taking a mulligan when they're rookies by and large anymore. Tyler Warren, tight end 8, as the first tight end drafted by Banks 50. That's Matthew Pfleger's team here. Based on what he grabbed early on, it's aggressive. And certainly you don't have to, you want to beat these 11 teams, but he's got bigger things in mind. Your thoughts on Tyler Warren and quite frankly, how you've been handling him in your best ball tournament drafts when you consider that he goes at the tight end 8 in the mid-6th round tonight?
Yeah. So, from a talent wise, what we saw out of him at Penn State, like, you absolutely love it. He got the first round draft capital, even if it was the second tight end chosen, still great capital. And the positive camp reports are that, like, hey, they want to force feed him. They're even trying to use him in the backfield, all those kind of narrative things around, like, hey, we like this player. We're not going to take it slow with him. I think those are all positives. I think the challenge is, as Brian says here, who's the QB? Mm-hmm. And right now in best ball, for the past month, not including the past kind of few days, I think the market's general sentiment is that Daniel Jones was going to win the starting job. And so you have Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, all of their ADPs rose up with the expectation of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones being the QB. If Anthony Richardson is the actual QB, then all of those players take a dock. The entire offense, from a fantasy wise, is hurt except for Anthony Richardson, and I'll throw out Alec Pierce because they have that deep connection. Alec Pierce led the team in receiving yards last year. It's a crazy stat, but yeah. So if Daniel Jones, and even if Anthony Richardson wins the job, who knows how long he keeps it and such, like, it's hit or miss. But if you told me Daniel Jones was going to be the QB the whole year, I think Tyler Warren is a fantastic pick, because I think there's probably if I was to break it up, I would literally guess like Anthony Richardson's going to start 9 or 10 games this year, and Daniel Jones is probably close to that kind of 6, 7, 8. And so that scares me a bit with the Tyler Warren. Are we allowed to talk about players that haven't been drafted yet, or is that kind of a faux pas?
No, I listen, for me, I know some players don't like it, but they signed up for this. They know my policy. Talk about whoever you want, whenever you want. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. And the other thing is Tyler Warren, this is 1.5 point PPR. Mm-hmm. He's not going to get that for those handoffs that he's getting, which are valuable on other sites. But I'm shocked, Colson Loveland still being available right now. That's the rookie tight end. I still like both of them, but if we're talking 2 rounds later, you can get Colson Loveland, that feels like extreme value to me.
You're not concerned with the shoulder thing at all?
Oh, not at all. No, he's already Cole Kmet's already running with the 2s. They've got Colson Loveland as kind of the de facto tight end on that offense. I think he's probably him and Caleb, because even if Caleb sucks like he did last year as a football player, he still actually had good fantasy stats. I think Colson Loveland's the one that I actually trust the most in that offense. You have Ben Johnson coming in. We saw what he did with Sam Laporta in his rookie season. Okay. I know. But not seriously, yeah. And again, I like Tyler Warren too, but when you're giving me a 2-round gap between those two, yeah.
So I have to bring this up right now. And for those of you who are watching the Hall of Fame game, if you had on your bingo card, the first touchdown of the NFL season was going to be Trey Lance to Will Dissly. Congratulations, because that parlay just hit for you, as the Chargers have taken a 7-3 lead over the Detroit Lions in Canton tonight. I want to get back to
Trey Lance also fumbled. So we're getting the whole Trey Lance experience.
It's everything tonight. You couldn't have you're watching Justin Herzig on the Better Sports Network. You got a side eye going on Trey Lance doing Trey Lance things. This is football, man.
We could even make it easier for the people that want to watch the game, right? Just put it on in the background.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. The background has been sort of where Travis Hunter, has been in a lot of FFPC drafts. Nobody quite has a great handle on how to handle him in the best ball tournament, the main event, the big gorilla, what have you, with the FFPC. Travis Hunter goes tonight as wide receiver 32 at the 608 to Brent Studebaker as his number 4 receiver. I have been pretty bullish on Travis Hunter this year. I've been very aggressive. I feel like fortune favors the bold. I don't want to draft scared. I don't want to draft in fear. Am I making the wrong call by drafting Travis Hunter in like the 6th round, the early 7th round, or what have you? Your thoughts on what Travis Hunter is going to do offensively this year, Justin, in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I mean, I think Calvin Ridley and Travis Hunter being right next to each other is a very interesting dynamic. You look at one, Calvin Ridley is going to clearly get the most volume on his offense, has minimal, receiving competition. Cam Ward maybe, has the rookie ascension. So like it makes sense. Travis Hunter, not safe at all. We don't know what his target share is going to be, but I don't think you can play scared, especially in these type of tournaments. I'm willing to draft him probably an entire round earlier than where I'm trying to see like where, around it's close. Like I'm looking at the wide receivers, and I think like around that George Pickens, like I'd still take T-Mac ahead of him. I'd still probably take like Jameson Williams, Colton Sutton. So maybe it's for me in this draft, he only went Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, like maybe in that area you could move Travis Hunter too. So I don't think like it's a crazy fall where he's going here. But I definitely would not be wanted to be scared. If anything, I'd be trying to target him because when things work out, his talent as a wide receiver, like his draft from a prospect, from a profile standpoint, he could just break things.
I think it's interesting with Travis Hunter. He is one of these players that we're going to be looking at regardless of what happens in the preseason, regardless of what happens before the start of the NFL season. Nobody knows what to expect from this guy. Like nobody knows what's going to happen with him offensively speaking and how people are going to draft him. I think his ADP could vary wildly. You look at right now in the FFPC best ball tournament, Travis Hunter has an average ADP of 607. However, in the last 30 days, he has gone as high as the 511. He's gone as late as the 612. So you got this basically one full round where he's going somewhere in between there, and you don't know what to expect. I want to move on to the 7th round here. The first pick of the 7th round was Jauan Jennings. That's ElCidCoop, who is being drafted by Jason Cooper tonight. He takes Jauan Jennings at the 701. He's been missing some time with a leg injury. I think it was a hamstring. I could be wrong on that. What do you make of that situation right now going on in San Francisco when you consider that Ricky Pearsall is seemingly good to go? He had that hamstring injury earlier, but he seems to be practicing right now. Deebo Samuel's in Washington. Brandon Ayuk, we don't know when he's coming back. I'm seeing people in some dynasty rookie drafts I'm in right now, drafting myself included, Jordan Watkins in like the 7th or 8th, round of rookie drafts. We don't know what's going on in San Francisco. So as a result, with Jauan Jennings and the injury news on him right now, wide receiver 34 tonight at the 701. Is that a good price to be paying for Jauan Jennings, Justin?
Okay, so about a week ago, we hear, a week or two ago, we hear from Jauan Jennings that wants a new contract, feels like he's being underpaid based off his performance last year. He had just kind of renegotiated his contract last year. I think he's getting $7.5 million and feels that he deserves more. Based off of his performance last year, I completely get it. 49ers, though, he doesn't really have any leverage. And I think Jauan Jennings kind of knows that. So he said, I'm not going to hold out. I'm not going to do a hold in. I'm going to stay with the team, but I want a new contract. Okay, cool. He then plays, goes to practice, everything's fine, goes to practice again. Middle of practice, I think it was a calf injury, and we don't, he leaves the field. And so then you start getting the kind of speculation of was this just like the new hold in? But I don't think he would say, I'm not going to hold in, go to practice the next day, halfway through practice, kind of leave. And so I'm then thinking he did actually have this calf injury. Sure, maybe he's not rushing to get back on the field because of the calf injury, in the contract situation. But I think there is something there. We then got more reports today about this lingering issue, and it was, I think, the same leg that he had previously. So I would say, in general, I like Jauan Jennings. I want to be drafting him, but I am concerned based off the recent reports that I probably would let him fall past some of the other players, wide receivers that have been going.
There are so many, you talk about concerns. The 8th round in tonight's draft is littered with concerns, and I'll try to go through them pick by pick here. Number 1 is Emeka Egbuka, who ends up going as wide receiver 40 at the 803 tonight, Justin. This is before Chris Godwin, which we're starting to see more and more in the FFPC. Egbuka goes 8 picks earlier than Godwin. It seems like everybody is all about Egbuka, and Godwin is off their board, except for Jason Kulaga, who takes him at the 811. Gnawin. I gotta get that right. Dimitrios Gikas, who you praised his team earlier in this draft. And Emeka Egbuka goes here 8 picks before Godwin. Is that the way you'd be handling it right now? Obviously, all the news coming out of Tampa is pro Egbuka and anti-Godwin right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we are definitely seeing the flipping of the ADPs between Godwin and Egbuka. I think that this rise for Egbuka makes complete sense. The amount of praise that he's getting, and it's like, it's not, oh, we're asking, offensive coordinator, Glizzard, I think it is, like about it. Instead, it's Baker saying it on a Travis Kelce's podcast. It is Mike Evans coming out and talking about how much of a professional and how great of a career Egbuka is going to have. And so I'm already like bullish on the Bucs offense. I don't know how it happens, but I still think like they're going to have explosive games the way that they're playing with Baker, even though you have the new offensive coordinator. And so in that realm, like I want to make bets on all of the players in that offense. And so I'm willing to continue to buy this price of Egbuka as he rises, but I'm also going to be buying the Godwin as he gets cheaper, because I don't think he should be falling as much as he has. The ankle injury, we've known about it. Yes, the second surgery is new, but the team is still saying that the timeline is that he's going to be ready week 1. And even if he does miss some of that early time, he was wide receiver, 2 when he was healthy last year before he got hurt in that Ravens game. Like the upside there's for wide receiver going at this point in the draft, still attached to such a high powered offense. I still want to be buying.
Matthew Golden went at the 805 tonight, wide receiver 41 to Banks 50. That's Matthew Pfleger's squad. Matthew Golden is his number 3 wide receiver. The reports have been glowing coming out of Packers camp about Golden defensively, or the defensive players, the offensive players, the coaches. Everybody is talking about the praises of Matthew Golden. I was at the draft for the NFL in Green Bay this past April, and my son was recording my reaction to the Matthew Golden selection, and everybody and their mother is going crazy. All these Packers fans that have not seen a first-round wide receiver drafted by Green Bay since Javon Walker in 2002. And I just, my son flashed the camera to me, and I was just shaking my head. I'm like, God, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't like this pick for Green Bay. And for fantasy, I have not been targeting him in a lot of spots. Best ball, it's a little bit different because I could see him having these spike weeks this year. Your thoughts on Matthew Golden in a Packers uniform? By the way, wearing number 22. He looks like an undersized running back. He looks like Darren Sproles reincarnated. That's another thing that turns me off. I don't know, Justin. Maybe I'm wrong about Golden. How have you been handling him?
22 for now. Rumors is he's going to be moving to the number 2. That's definitely better for wide receivers. And I think we'll like to see that streaking down the field a little better.
Yes.
I get it. Like his, prospect profile from as a rookie. I mean, as draft prospect, it wasn't that great. But I think we need to have a little humility when a team drafts a wide receiver in the first round. And we need to then kind of accept that, hey, they see something that we didn't. They see something specific to their offense for a way to work out. Because you really do not take wide receivers in this day and age in the first round as more of just like a role player. Like, hey, we're just going to have that player as a flanker. I'm thinking back to like what Darius Hayward-Bay when he went like, I don't know, top 6 or 7 or something like that to the Raiders. Like the wide receivers in this day and age, like, yes, we're not saying he's going to immediately become like the Brian Thomas of what that late first round last year. But I think we do need to have some level of trust in the Packers. And when you look at who he's competing against, Jayden Reed, fantastic talent, but also Jayden Reed doesn't play in 2 wide receiver sets. I think it was something like 4 to 6% or something was his 2 wide receiver sets last year, and I'm not expecting that to significantly change. Romeo Doubs is still there. Romeo Doubs plays his role, and so I think do I think Matthew Golden's going to have this breakout year? Probably not, but as a drafter, he's the type of player that I at least want to make a bet, because when it works out, especially at his cost right now, like he can pay that off in a big way. And that's just kind of what first round wide receivers, how it is these days.
Let's do this right now. Mac Nova has chimed in on YouTube with a question about the Green Bay Packers receivers. We can get into a discussion on this here, Justin. He says, which Packers receivers do you like most, Balky? And I would tell you this right now. I have drafted Matthew Golden in, I'd have to go back and look, but it's no more than 3 drafts this year. It's probably 2. Romeo Doubs is out there all the time. However, Jordan Love seems to be looking at Tucker Kraft as much as he looks at Romeo Doubs on third downs. I am out on Christian Watson, even though the reports today about him, cutting and doing all these things that he shouldn't be doing this early after an ACL tear. I'm still out on him. I'm not believing it. I liked Dontavian Wicks late in 28-round best ball drafts. I've been grabbing him as like a wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8. I believe that if you listen to the beat reporters in Green Bay, they're saying he's catching everything right now. And what was the problem we always had with Wicks? He can't catch, like he's dropping everything. That seems to be, at least for right now, it seems to be something that he solved. The reason that the Packers receiver that I like most is Jayden Reed. And I think you heard previously here from Justin of why he does not like him, at least from a macro standpoint. He's not on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. However, it seems like the Packers have always seemed to work Jayden Reed in. It seems like whenever he's on the field, he is more likely a target than a decoy. When the Packers drafted Matthew Golden in the first round and Savion Williams in the 3rd round this year, the NFL draft, Jayden Reed's new agent, Drew Rosenhaus, talked to Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, and he said, hey, what's going on here? You already had Jayden Reed. Why are you drafting Golden? Why are you drafting Savion Williams? And Brian Gutekunst reportedly, and I've been trying to find this quote on the internet. I haven't been able to find it, but plenty of people have reported it, Justin, that Brian Gutekunst, the GM for the Packers, said the picks of Golden and Williams do not affect the status of Jayden Reed as the number 1 wide receiver on this team. That's what he said. Now, again, you have to, it's out there on the internet somewhere. I know I've seen it before. So for me, in a managed league, I'm not drafting any of these Packers receivers, Mac. I'm staying away from maybe Tucker Kraft. But by and large, the only Packers receivers I'm drafting in best ball are Wicks late, Jayden Reed, and I'm sprinkling in a little Matthew Golden. I'm staying away from Dobbs because I just don't think he has that spike week potential. I don't think Christian Watson plays until the very end of the season or at all. And that's the way I'm handling the Packers receivers this year. Long way of saying, this is why I believe in Jayden Reed this year, and I'll give you a chance for rebuttal on this. I know you've kind of already answered this, Justin, but I'm kind of staying. I'm kind of like when it gets to my best ball drafts, and I'm looking for a number 4 or number 5 receiver. If Jayden Reed's out there, I've been getting him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I'm not against Jayden Reed. I think it was more of just the pro Matthew Golden argument. For me, I'm kind of bullish on this offense. I think Jordan Love healthy, they're going to want to throw more. Their passing rate over expectations going to increase from what it was last year. You don't have the Malik Willis aspect to it. And Jordan Love played that entire season kind of on the, hurt leg. So for me, I think this is an offense that I want pieces of. Jayden Reed and Matthew Golden both go really close to each other. And so I think it makes sense to kind of mix them both up. For me with Jayden Reed, I think the only way that he really has that breakout potential is if he can play in 2 wide receiver sets. I think he can have in a 1-game sample, have breakout. And because, the way that they use him, the way that they kind of force feed him, his explosiveness, almost like a Devo style, he can have big games. But across the season, the only way he really has that, hey, top 10, top 15 wide receiver season is if he starts playing in 2 wide receiver sets. But if he does, that changes everything. And now he should be being drafted as that almost 2nd round, 3rd round wide receiver. Yeah. I will throw in the Romeo Doubs. I think Romeo Doubs is one of the best values in best ball right now. He's going to be out in the field. He's going to be in 2 wide receiver sets. Jordan Love, if you remember back a couple years back, they asked him hey, you can have any 3 wide receivers on a play, out there with you. I don't remember who the other 2 were. It might have been people like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, whatever it was legit, the best wide receivers. And then he included Romeo Doubs as well. They have that connection. There's a reason why Romeo Doubs is continuously out there in the 2 wide receiver sets. And in managed leagues, yeah, probably not worth it. But in best ball, he can still has a lot, he has a higher average depth of target. He can still play downfield, still get those touchdowns. And he's going against wide receivers that may not even be seeing the field.
The other thing I'll bring up here regarding Romeo Doubs, and maybe this is a non-story, it probably is, quite frankly, but he was on Jordan Love was on the Kay Adams show on FanDuel, and he said, because Jordan Love got married recently, and on the Up and Adams show, he was asked about, who he would trust with the wedding rings, for his wedding. And the guy he said was Romeo Doubs. The quote, I'm going to trust Romeo. I'm putting it in his hands right there. Okay. Maybe that's just nothing. Maybe it's something. I don't know.
He's got good hands.
He does have good hands, strong hands, Romeo Doubs. So there you go. That's
not giving it to Dontavian Wicks. I can guarantee you that.
No, that's just it's way too risky. Like it's way too risky at this point. The thing that's great about Wicks is how late he's going in drafts. I would not be drafting him as like my number 5 receiver in best ball or anything like that. But when you're talking about like a potential 28 round draft and I need a wide receiver 7, it goes back to this too, and I'm not comparing the two because Devontae Adams was a 2nd round pick. Dontavian Wicks was like a round 5 pick or whatever he was. But there is a precedent here for these guys just looking like they have no idea how to catch a football for their first 2 years. And then all of a sudden, boom, year 3, it clicks. I don't know. Does that happen to Wicks this year? My guess is probably not. Does he have a higher than normal chance at it? I would say so. Like I've always been a believer in Wicks. The way he matriculated through college with multiple head coaches, offensive coordinators, offenses, quarterbacks, like he was put through the ringer. And I do believe the Packers got a good value on him. I do believe he has a future in Green Bay, although that time is running short, especially after the drafting of Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. So we'll see what happens there. We are more than halfway through this draft tonight, the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, covering it here for you live on Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. I am Eric Balkman. He is Justin Herzig from Establish Your Run, FFN60.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of these teams from a macro perspective. Let's talk about what these teams look like halfway through as they're all competing for a $300,000 grand prize. Justin Herzig is going to give his thoughts. I'm going to give mine. You're watching the Better Sports Network right here with the FFPC Insider Access Show.
This is the main event draft season.
A main event team on FFPC $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
The FFPC Big Gorilla is live at myffpc.com. $1 million grand prize, only $350 to enter, and you're going to get a $50 discount on every third team you sign up for. Drafts running right now, live and slow at myffpc.com. 7 Bananas promo is live. If you keep getting that 7 pick multiple times in a row, we're going to give you a $125 FFPC best ball team. We're going to give you a free $2,000+ FFPC main event team. We're going to give you a $10,000 FFPC high society draft team. And then if you get it 5 times in a row, boom, $50,000 cash or a jungle safari for 4. myffpc.com is where to go for that. Justin Herzig joining me tonight on the FFPC Insider Access Show here on the Better Sports Network. It has been a throwback on this Hall of Fame game tonight. The Chargers taking a 14-0 lead. I know it was 7. I said it was 7-3 before. I got my CFL score mixed up with my NFL score with Ottawa in a 7-3 battle tonight. The Chargers up 14-0 now, Justin, with not only Will Dissly getting in the end zone, Remember this guy called Kamani Vidal? He gets a 2-yard rushing touchdown tonight. It's all coming together.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past. Obviously, Omarion Hampton, they're not going to keep him in the game for too long. So it sounds like after that first drive, they took him out, and then Kamani Vidal right there. And there was a 28-yard catch, I believe it was, for
Keandre Lambert-Smith. Yes.
People have been hyping him up.
Yeah, you got Lambert-Smith with the 28-yard catch on his only target. Hampton gets 2 carries for 9 yards. He does not see a target in the passing game. It seems like he's out right now. Detroit is putting nobody out there. You got Craig Reynolds with 3 carries for 6 yards. Kyle Allen, 1 attempt for 4 yards here tonight with a pick. It's not been great for Detroit, but this is why it's preseason. Let's get back into the draft here because we got about 15 plus minutes, a little bit left for you tonight. And I want to get into your thoughts on some of these teams, Justin, and we'll start with team 1 here. They get TJ Hawkinson. This is, by the way, Jason Cooper's team from the 1 spot tonight. TJ Hawkinson at the 5, Hunter Henry at the 11 in a tight end premium format. I always feel like you got to be a little bit more, even if you think the tight end, the 1.5 per catch is overrated. I do think you have to be a little bit aggressive with tight end. You think Jason Cooper was aggressive enough with Hawkinson in the 5th round and then Hunter Henry in the 11th?
Yeah, I mean, and I have Hawkinson above Kelsey. So like when you already see, you have that gap as well. I think for me in this format, there's probably like in that round 6 to 9, I'd probably want to be taking at, 2 tight ends, because that's where you've kind of seen the drop from the running backs. Like when you go from that James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Kamara, Trevion Henderson, and then dropping next to the DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, like that's only a round and change of draft boards. But I think from a projection risk upside, like a substantial. So like, I still want to be taking running backs, but after you lose that to your running backs, you then wide receivers start slowly cascading off. You have a lot of upside with these tight ends where Mark Andrews was out, Isaiah Likely. We've got the rookies and Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, David Njoku. I mean, when, we may get Joe Flacco, but like the amount of volume that he continues to get in that offense. So there's a lot of guys in that range I like. I'm okay with TJ Hawkinson, but I feel like he almost kind of got the beginning of a tier with the Hawkinson and then waited till afterwards with the Hunter Henry. So not a bad thing, but I think like kind of missed out on some of those pockets that I usually go for.
The team at 4, that's Henrything as possible here, takes Brock Bowers. After Chase, Robinson, and Barkley go off the board here, Justin. Bowers is their first pick. They have not taken a tight end since the first round. They've gotten Drake May in the 10th round, but it's a pounding of running backs and receivers here. James Cook, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Isaac Guerrero, and then A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Jacoby Myers, Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir. If you are drafting an elite tight end, and when I say elite, I'm talking about Bowers, I'm talking about McBride, I'm talking about Kittle. When you draft a tight end that early, would this be your strategy where you're just pounding running backs and receivers? Tight end premium be damned. You're going to figure out tight end later on because you have Bowers. How would you handle a Brock Bowers team from the 104?
So hopefully you can still hear me. As you can see, my AirPod went out. So I didn't get to hear the whole question, but
you're good.
You can hear me. That's good. Where I think like specifically with the Bowers and the way that played out, I think that worked out really well. I think when you're going to go with the Bowers first overall, like it gives you that freedom to say, hey, I'm going to just have this be my primary tight end. I'm not going to go for a second tight end in a flex spot, just like play that one tight end and know that he's counting on, he's providing you that value all throughout. The rest of that draft, I think, is pretty solid as well. You have the James Cook, Alvin Kamara, Dave Montgomery going for kind of the older backs, but Dave Montgomery for me is one of the kind of guys that I'm specifically targeting because I think he still has value, but has that true contingency upside if Jahmyr Gibbs gets hurt. Let me see if hopefully I'd be able to connect my backup headphones here. Let me see if you talk and I'll hear you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
No, All right, keep going. I'm going to try to get this figured out.
You try to connect that. I think it's the Montgomery thing is interesting because over the course of drafting season here, I have been trying to get David Montgomery on a bunch of my teams. David Montgomery is a player that I think is underrated based on what we have seen at the end of last season. Like everybody was looking at what Jahmyr Gibbs did towards the end of last season and talking about, Theo Greminger from Fantasy Points. I've referenced this multiple times. He said back in January and February that he would not be surprised if Gibbs was going to be the 101 in several FFPC drafts this year. We've seen him go 101 before. And I think as a result, well, what's the opposite of that? Well, if Gibbs is being overrated, David Montgomery's probably being underrated right now. So if you look at David Montgomery's ADP in the FFPC best ball tournament right now over the last 30 days or whatever it is, running back 24 at the 608. He's gone as high as the 506. He has fallen as late as the 708. He is in the territory right now, and I'm going to bring it up. I apologize. I thought I had this up right now. But he is going as far as running backs go in the FFPC best ball tournament. He is going in the same territory as Caleb Johnson, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey a little bit after RJ Harvey, and significantly ahead of Tony Pollard and Isaiah Pacheco. But you look at Montgomery in this format too. I think that's a player that you have to start looking seriously at, that he's not going to break fantasy. Everybody's looking to break fantasy, right? That's the biggest thing. It's like, this guy's going to break fantasy if you draft him here. And you're going to have, Scott Barrett has his Exodia plays or whatever. And that's fine and that's good. And sometimes they work out, but other times they don't. And Montgomery too. I know everybody's looking at upside. There's not a ton of upside with Montgomery, but when you consider what he was able to do last year, and when you consider how FFPC players are valuing him in the best ball tournament this year, Justin, I think you can make a case that, David Montgomery is not the sexy pick that's going to beat out thousands of other people at the 608, but there is some upside here, especially if Gibbs goes down. There's some contingent upside there as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other running back that has as much contingency upside as David Montgomery has. And even with a full healthy Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery could still have a substantial role in that offense, substantial role around the goal line. So I think he's kind of being drafted as his median outcome. But if there was an injury to Jahmyr Gibbs, then we're projecting David Montgomery is probably RB 6 or 7 each week.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you think about it, obviously here. So I don't know how we got on the subject of that, but I do want to talk about Brent Studebaker's team at the 5 spot tonight. Specifically, and I know I keep coming back to the tight ends here, but we are through 12 rounds. He has drafted one tight end. It was the tight end 11, Tucker Kraft. I have been staunch in my, I don't want to say support, whatever the opposite of the support is. I did not see the upside with Tucker Kraft because of all these pass catchers that Green Bay has. Jacobs, Lloyd, Golden, Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, all these other guys, Musgrave to a certain extent. And I'm like, Kraft is fine. But then I hear all these people talking about this guy is a dark horse to being top 5 tight end this year. And he's not being drafted anywhere close to that. And I've kind of come around on Tucker Kraft, understanding okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the guy who is not evaluating Tucker Kraft in the right way. Brent Studebaker has a team that is very heavy on wide receivers. He's got his quarterbacks. He's pounded some running backs in Charbonnet and Benson late to go with Travion Henderson and Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey stays healthy, if Tucker Kraft is this ascendant tight end, his team is going to be looking really good here. The question for me right now that I'm asking you, Justin, is Tucker Kraft an ascendant tight end in 2025?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about this team, but yes, it kind of hinges on that Jordan Love Tucker Kraft stack, which, hey, I like the stack. I think for Tucker Kraft, it really comes into a vibes versus projection analysis, because vibes wise, you listen to the reports, you can tell yourself a story that this offense is going to run through Tucker Kraft. There's a lot of, I don't know which wide receiver is going to be the alpha, so maybe Tucker Kraft can become the alpha. And then we've saw hey, with Tucker Kraft healthy last year, he had some explosiveness, and you could see okay, being a core part of this offense. All that said, when you actually get down to the projections and you're doing kind of a bottoms up analysis, there are just so many mouths to feed, and he's not the type of player that kind of commands target share, especially not when you're comparing against a first round wide receiver that, all they've talked up with Matthew Golden. So in my mind, I think he's a little expensive for what I'm looking at. I'd rather have Colson Loveland. I'd much rather have David Njoku. But at the end of the day, like it's not like a bad pick. And if I'm going to draft him, I think you definitely draft Jordan Love. I saw his comment. He's got his sleeper tight end still out there. That's one of the great things about tight ends is there's like in later rounds, you can still get so many starting tight ends. I know where we are right now, even with like Hunter Henry, Isaiah Likely off the board, Brenton Strange just goes right there, but we're still a couple of rounds away from starting tight ends being like no longer available. Like those Jatavian Sanders, Theo Johnson, Jawan Johnson, like those guys hang out for a while. So if you want to grab someone that you're bullish on like Tucker Kraft and then maybe grab two more later on that are in that range, I think that's completely a viable strategy.
How do you, I mean, like with tight end premium drafts, Justin, how have you sort of handled it? Like is there a cheat code? Is there a proper rubric to be following? I guess it kind of depends what you do with the elite guys early on, but do you have a favorite tight end strategy in a tournament such as the FFPC best ball tournament?
Yeah, so if I miss out on the elite guys, and I think for this specific format, that's Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. I don't think we can really include Kittle just because his role comes from actual, average at the target and touchdowns and efficiency. And we're talking about 1.5 points per reception. We're actually talking about like volume. So I want one of the elite guys. If I miss out on them, that's where I'm looking for guys with upside. And also I'm looking for pockets of the draft where I'm not giving up substantial value elsewhere. So let's look at an example in round 9 here. Wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Khalil Shakir, Josh Downs, Ken Coleman, Jaden Reed. Like I'm not the most excited for those guys. And so if I'm going, I'm veering during that draft to go for tight ends, I don't feel like I'm missing out on a round or two before. You've got still guys like, the Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, Romo Dunze who have that upside. So now I'm looking at that round 9. And then running backs, you're looking at J.K. Dobbins, who's like, maybe the 1B. You're looking at Jaylen Warren, who might be the 1A. So again, they're solid backs, but like I'm not feeling like I'm missing out crazily. But the tight ends that are available there are the guys like Colson Loveland, are the guys, and maybe this is now a round earlier, but that's where I can tell myself a story that these guys can have a breakout. And so for me with tight end premium, I'm looking for upside. If I miss out on the elite ones, I probably want to grab 2 in the 7 to 8 range, or grab 1 in that kind of 6 to 7 range. And then you could make I think a 4 tight end team is viable in this format. I'm willing on other sites to go 4 tight ends late. Here, when you're adding a premium to it, maybe grab 1 middle and then use your picks 17, 18, 19 to grab those guys that I was just talking about where, hey, second year Theo Johnson, 9.99 RAS, athletic specimen. If you're not going to be competing against kind of Cody Bellinger for targets, maybe he can earn a larger role. Jatavian Sanders with Tommy Tremble being hurt. Jawan Johnson without the Taysom Hill. Like there's a lot of stories for guys that are going to be out in the field and have a chance for maybe some form of a breakout.
So I want to bring up this from the Jesus is King spot, the 6th spot. George Kittle in the 2nd round tonight. Okay, he does not take another tight end until we're through 13 rounds, and he has not taken a second tight end. He also did not take a quarterback until round 9, where he gets Fields, Herbert in round 11, Stafford in round 13. So he's got these 3 quarterbacks. I always say, when it comes to this, Justin, you're recreating a quarterback 1 in the aggregate, like Moneyball with Billy Bean when talking about how to recreate Jason Giambi. You are recreating Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, et cetera, in the aggregate with a best ball team featuring Fields, Herbert, and Stafford. When you look at this squad, they went early tight end. They have gone late quarterback. How often are you implementing a strategy like that here?
Yeah, on a tight end premium side, I think that's very strong. QBs have of the general best ball formats, QBs are least valuable in a tight end premium PPR type site. Because first off, like when you talk for a half PPR, they now are the largest percentage of your team scoring for each week. When you talk PPR, they're a little less valuable, and now even more so when you move to tight end premium. So if you're going to choose between elite tight end and elite QB, you would default to the elite tight end in this format. You can also see in that 9th, 10th, 11th round, there is just really strong like QBs that you can just pepper and really just focus on like, hey, let me see where I can stack. And I know we're not there yet, but like I definitely want to go back to that team 10 that I mentioned earlier, kind of my early out the door favorite. but getting Baker Mayfield in the 10th round, getting JJ McCarthy in the 11th round, like, I don't want to just like confirmation bias here because I liked it early, but like that team just continues to kind of be hammering the right positions, the right players in the right spots.
Yeah, we talked about Hampton earlier, 310 tonight for Dimitrios, Gikas, who was drafting from the 10 spot tonight. Mayfield, McCarthy, you just mentioned. Only Evan Engram at tight end. We'll see what he needs to do here. Justin, if you were drafting this team here, I mean, like, what are you doing with tight end over the last 7 rounds of this draft? Are you adding 2 more? Are you adding three more? I mean, does this strike you? Would you ever go more than 4 tight ends in a tight end premium format?
I don't think I'd go more than 4.
Gikas is on the clock here, by the way.
flex.
We'll see what he does. Yeah.
And it is 2 flex. And with the tight end premium, you can tell yourself a story where like, hey, I could spend my last 5 rounds and theoretically you could play 3 of those each week. But in my mind, like instead of doing 5, I'd rather do like 1 middle and then 3 late or something. So I think 5 is probably excessive. I'd have to really think a bit more about it, but I think 4 is very viable. If I'm this team with the Evan Engram, you have 6 really strong wide receivers: Justin Jefferson, Nico, Xavier with the George Pickens, Chris Olave, Ekbuka. Like, I think this can stop. I don't know the buys off heart of all of these. I'd have to really think through. Let's go. Houston is 6, Minnesota is 6.
They're on
10,
yeah.
Dallas 10.
They're
Olave,
on there. They're on the board, Justin. Like, you're looking at the
I
receivers.
see it now. Bottom left. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like you only, you've got, maybe you go 1 more wide receiver, but I think you could also make this just a 6 wide receiver team. He's going with the heavy running backs right now that have the contingency value with the handcuffs. So I like that. I probably would go with 1 more quarterback, like a Tyler Shuck late, to give you that additional stack with the Chris Olave. And that's the right level of kind of QB investment, and making this either a 3 or 4 tight end team, as long as you can kind of grab couple of those guys that I referenced. And maybe if you want to get a little crazy, grabbing like a rookie, Terrence Ferguson, Harold Finn, and with the very last one, if you're like, shoot for upside.
So last question I want to ask you tonight. Jaden Blue ends up going at the 12:03 tonight as running back 42 to Gnawen. That is Dimitrios Gikas' squad. The most recent reports, very glowing about Jaden Blue. And we have not heard a lot of glowing stuff about Miles Sanders or Javonte Williams. Your thoughts on Jaden Blue as well? Your thoughts on Jaden Blue as how good of a pick he is in the 12th round, given this, again, it's preseason. We don't know exactly how much stock to put into it, but you're getting potentially the number 1 running back here in the 12th round on a team that should be putting up points this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. He's extremely fast, explosive. In college, he never got a workhorse role and never had that much volume. So I'm not expecting him to take that role in Dallas. But I mean, you look at the players ahead of him. Javonte Williams right now, his best skill set is that he's a pass blocker, and he's a very good pass blocker. And so like that can have a role in that offense, but you're not expecting that to kind of take a substantial amount of volume. Miles Sanders, he's the actual only one of the 2, and him and Javonte, that's actually gotten like some positive praise in camp. But like, we've seen Miles Sanders, like, sure, at his value, he's a fine pick, but I'm not expecting like that to be the kind of runaway. And so there's just an open door for Jaden Blue. And the comments today, I think, was like a comp to Darren Sproles. Previously, I think like Nyheim Hines was a pretty decent one. Evan Silva was referencing him to Devon Achane. So like, it's all these maybe undersized, but very explosive players that have a spot, have a role in the league these days. And if Dallas is going to be as throw heavy as we expect, and they're not actually going to have a great run game, like there's opportunity for Jaden Blue to kind of earn a role as a pass catcher early on. And then maybe they start feeding him some of the inside zone runs. And, I think that's what the practice video that we saw where he was kind of getting that inside scheme has a chance to, not turn into a 20 touch volume. But if he can find his way to like 13, 14 touches a game, he could be very valuable.
Very valuable is the email that you send out every day, ff@60.com. This is something that from a guy who has won a ton of cash playing fantasy football, basketball tournaments, playing fantasy football in general. and I always say this because the FFPC, like, we're all about the players. Like, we want to do what the players want. You are a player, you are a drafter, and you said, screw this. I'm sick of people not having this come out. Let's do something here that I want. And you have come up with ffn60.com, something that I think is very valuable, something that I think a lot of the viewers tonight, Justin, think is very valuable. Tell us a little bit more about that. I know you touched on it in the first hour, but tell us when people sign up for the FFN60 newsletter via email, what are they going to get?
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, each morning you're just going to get the things that actually matter from the day before with my personal takes on how I'm adapting to the information. So, for example, most recently you have things like I think it was the Xavier Worthy concussion. So started talking about what that opportunity looks like for someone all the way down to Jalen Roll to what the entire offense is. Or how I'm approaching like the Justin Jefferson. So as soon as that news hits, kind of give you the scoop and then give my personal take on it. Tomorrow's I'm already working on is going to have a nice little injury update. So talking through all the players. So yeah, this is going to be a new little injury corner feature as well, where we're bringing in a sports orthopedic surgeon who specializes in this kind of area to say what his thoughts are on how long players are going to be out, what their re-injury risk is, all of that. And yeah, it's completely free. So there's no reason not to just kind of give it a try.
The king of St. Petersburg, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, check him out at Justin Herzig on X, ffn60.com. Sign up for that. And of course, check out all of his best ball content over at Establish the Run. Justin, I know how busy everybody is this time of year. The fact that you made some time for 2 hours in late July, I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can have you back on soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know you got to bounce and enjoy the rest of the drafting season as well. This was a pleasure.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you. And good luck to everyone that has been in this draft, in the room, watching this, comments, chat, all of that. This is a fun draft to watch. Can't wait to kind of get into more of these FFPCs.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, don't be a stranger. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good. See you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Justin Herzig at Justin Herzig on X. Of course, he is the creator of ffn60.com. I'm with many of you. I sign up for a ton of email services. I sign up for a lot of fantasy football stuff. When you're talking about synthesizing that and getting that down into one simple email, one simple minute of your life, go to ffn60.com and make sure that you, before you draft any FFPC best ball tournaments, Big Gorilla main event, you are signing up for Justin's newsletter, because that is going to set you up for success over the course of the rest of the day. And he comes out with a new one every day. So check that out. Establish the Run is where his best ball content is, at Justin Herzig on the X. Okay, let's get back into it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We are now entering round 15 of the FFPC best ball tournament draft we're covering tonight. Once again, all 12 of these drafters are going for a $300,000 grand prize in the FFPC best ball tournament. For the first time ever, we have added a $100,000 runner-up prize in this. So even if you don't win the whole thing, if you take second, you're gonna get $100,000 back to you. It's just $125 to enter. This is going to go all the way through to the start of the NFL season. So make sure you're signing up now. I guess I shouldn't say all the way to the start of the NFL season, because we've had this sell out early before, and it could be an early sellout this year. So get in while you can and take your shot at winning a $300,000 grand prize. Like I said, we're into round 15. It's wild that we see ElCidCoop. That is Jason Cooper's squad at the 1501 tonight, taking Najee Harris. He falls all the way to the 1501, which is wild when you consider that this is a player that was signed early in free agency. This is a player that was on the Chargers long before Omari and Hampton was. And now we see Omari and Hampton going at the 310 tonight to Gnawin, and we see Najee Harris falling all the way to the 15th round tonight to Jason Cooper at the 1501. Fun stuff tonight. Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Tyrone Tracy, Rashad White, and now Najee Harris in the 15th round, which is it's fun. And we'll discuss that and more. I want to get into our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. A guy that, if you watch the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, if you watch the Road of his High Stakes Lowdown, this guy is no stranger to FFPC drafts when it comes to best ball, when it comes to managed leagues, when it comes to dynasty. He is joining us tonight, the one, the only, the incomparable Brent Studebaker, StudDynasty from the 5 spot tonight. We'll bring him on right now. Brent, so good to have you on, man. You have gotten 15 rounds done out of 20. How do you feel about your squad so far?
I like it. I mean, in a league like this, you're fighting for the top 2 spots. You got to go for upside. If you stay pretty much straight line, you don't have upside. And if you do make it into the next round, you want to be different than the team. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do.
You know, Justin and I talked about your decision at the 105 tonight. It was a decision that somebody made in the Pros versus Joes on Tuesday night, taking McCaffrey over Jahmyr Gibbs, and you made that tonight too. You said, "To heck with the younger guy in Detroit. I'm going to take the older guy in San Francisco." Quite frankly, the more accomplished guy in San Francisco. How difficult a decision was it at the 105 tonight for you to take McCaffrey not only over Jahmyr Gibbs but CeeDee Lamb as well?
Honestly, it wasn't. I'm a big running back guy. McCaffrey, to me, it's a big if, but that's fantasy football. If he stays healthy, like y'all, he could be the 101 easily. CD kind of worries me just a tiny bit with Pickens, Ferguson. Y'all talked about Blue. He was a target of mine. I think Blue's going to be heavily involved in the passing game as well. I just, I was torn, but you got Justin Jefferson, or it was either, for me, Jefferson or McCaffrey. I went with McCaffrey. San Francisco, on paper going into this year has the easiest schedule. That's just on paper. You never. But with Brent Ayuk still battling injuries, Pearsall's been battling. You don't know what's going to happen to Jennings. All that Brock Purdy could have left for the first 4 to 6 weeks is Kittle and McCaffrey.
So the other thing I noticed with some of your wide receivers that you drafted early on, obviously Ladd McConkey is the number one in Los Angeles. There's no quarrel with that. But you have T. Higgins as the number 2 in Cincinnati behind Jamar Chase. Then in the 4th round, you draft Devonta Smith, who is the number 2 in Philadelphia behind A.J. Brown. You have Travis Hunter in round 6, who is the number 2 in Jacksonville to Brian Thomas. And then in round 8, Ricky Pearsall, who may or may not be the number 2 to either Brandon Ayuk or Jawan Jennings. I guess, quite frankly, he could be the number 1. And then you have not drafted a wide receiver since then. We're into round 16. Your thoughts on drafting all these number 2 wide receivers and how this can propel you to either a first or second place finish in this league?
Yeah. Thing with Higgins, I said it last year on Genesis with the headache that he would always happen, coming into last year trying to get the contract. Listen, you've talked about it on the Pros and versus Joes with Farrell. That's a high power offense. They didn't add much on defense, so they should be in shootouts. If I don't get Chase, I wanted Higgins because they're going to throw the ball a lot. He did miss a lot of time last year, but Higgins wasn't awful. And then when it comes to like Devontae Smith, I really wanted Jalen Hurts. I thought I'd get him back on the wraparound. I didn't. That's why the main reason why I took Devontae Smith there. Hindsight, I could have probably waited. And as far as like Travis Hunter, the upside's too big for me to pass him. I think Pearsall will be the number 1 in San Francisco. It's just a matter of time before he takes over. I don't know if Jennings is going to be a full season. He had 4 good games last year and then kind of went quiet. So for me, the upside for Pearsall is what got it. But I want Travis Hunter on every best ball because he can have 2 catches for $110 and 2 touchdowns.
That's true. He very well could. You are coming up on your 1608 pick here. We have Jesus is King 777. That squad run by Billy Boone. He is on the clock right now. He just took Cade Otton and Nick Chubb in the previous 2 rounds. We'll see what he does here. And then you're on the clock, my friend. You already have 2 quarterbacks. You have 3 tight ends. The running back core is at 5. You're looking at 5 wide receivers. This is exactly the type of team construction I'm looking at because I like the balance. It gives you the freedom to do whatever you want here in the 16th round. What are you thinking here, knowing that you're going to be on the clock any second round? Are you looking at a specific player? Are you looking at a specific position when it comes to you here? Because we've seen players or picks like this late in the draft really become league winners. We're in the league winner portion. Wan'Dale Robinson goes off the board. You are now on the clock, Brent. Take us through it.
Like you said, I'm going for league winner. I'm going to go with the running back that was traded up for. Jarquez Hunter is a prime example right here for me that can easily one injury away, and he can win you 2 or 3 weeks. And to get him in 16th round, um, it's a no-brainer. I'd rather have him than the Kyron Williams owner.
The last two picks that you made, Brent, Woody Marks and Jarquez Hunter, both of those teams traded up for those players. And you can make the case that Houston actually gave up more than Los Angeles did to get Jarquez Hunter. They gave up more to get Woody Marks. So certainly that, and I know you're a dynasty guy. How serious is that a thing that you look at in your rookie drafts, in your early season best balls, or your early season managed leagues? How serious are you looking at players like this that their teams end up trading significant draft capital to get these players on their team? As a result, you want to give up decent draft capital to get these players on your squad as well.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you look at every move especially when it comes to running backs. At least I do. Listen, Joe Mixon, he's getting up there in age. So if they trade up, you got to think that coaching staff likes him. And then Kyron hasn't stayed healthy consistently. And everybody, I don't know if you saw it on NFL Network, the way that the Rams looked whenever they drafted Hunter, how excited they were. Sean McVay and the GM, I don't remember his name.
Les Snead.
Yep, Les Snead, how excited they were. Everything I'm hearing from OTAs right now, they like what they see. I liked Blake Corum. They wouldn't have traded up if Blake Corum was going to be the next man up.
It's a good point. I want to ask you about Tucker Kraft here. We talked about it. Justin Herzig and I talked about Tucker Kraft significantly tonight. You do not take a tight end in the first 6 rounds. I want to talk about whether that's sort of par for the course for you and how you handle these best ball teams or actually manage teams like redraft teams. And then number 2, did you not draft the tight end earlier because you had a lot of confidence in Tucker Kraft not only being there, but showing up for you for this squad this season as you try to win a $300,000 grand prize?
The big thing with me with Tucker Kraft is I got stuck in this draft tonight. I waited too long. Usually 6 through 9, if you don't have one, that's where you need to target one. Go in the middle. Tucker Kraft, they, like y'all talked about, there's a lot of mouths to feed there. I looked at it as who can I get here on a good offense with a good coach that has upside, and I can pair him with the quarterback. Tucker Kraft was there. There was one other guy there, and I can't remember who it was when I took him that I almost took.
And Njoku was out there. Loveland was out there. Kincaid. All those players.
Loveland was on the short list, but to me also there's a lot of people to feed there. Like I'm high on Luther Burden. Ben Johnson, his first wide receiver pick. They got plans for him. You got Roma Dunze. So I was just at an element in the draft of where can I get a quarterback that I can pair up and try to get a hookup to save that position for me. Because instead of getting 7.5 points for a touchdown, I can double up on my quarterback.
The thing that's interesting here to me, speaking of your quarterback, you take Ricky Pearsall at the 808. Would you have taken Brock Purdy in the next round had you not gotten Pearsall there? Was Purdy simply a stack play for you at quarterback there, even though you did not have a signal caller on your roster at that point?
At that time, yeah, because I took McCaffrey. So I think McCaffrey will be back receiving. That's another stack. So I was actually surprised to see Pearsall still out there. And I said, well, let's go get both of them. I wanted the hookup with McCaffrey just because I should get every offensive touchdown, ideally every offensive touchdown in San Francisco this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely accurate here. You got McCaffrey, Pearsall, Purdy. What's your level of concern with like players like Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk?
Jennings, like I said, I don't know. He had a couple good games last year, but he's not happy. So, so he's not practicing. Ayuk, I like Ayuk. I just don't know when he's going to come back this year. And then usually it's 1 year later after an ACL injury that you see that burst back. Like Brees Hall last year, he didn't have that burst season. People are hoping this year he does. He wants it because he's in a contract year. So yeah, that
You are on deck right now for the 17th round. We just mentioned that you had taken Jarquez Hunter in the 16th round behind Blake Corum, behind Kyron Williams in Los Angeles. Before that, you got Woody Marks, who was playing behind Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon in Houston. And quite frankly, the path to fantasy greatness might be a little bit shorter for Woody Marks than it is with Jarquez Hunter. You are now on the clock here, Brent. Dante Thornton, the rookie receiver for Las Vegas, goes to Henrything is Possible to Chance Moe and Keem Star here at the 1704. Take us through this pick at the 1705, my friend.
I got two quarterbacks. I'm going to go with one more. I'm going to take Tyler Show just because that's an offense that they're going to throw the ball. Take a chance. He's my third quarterback. If something happens, you gotta have a quarterback. You can't be without one. So I don't want to leave these drafts without three. I like Joe Flacco, but I think that's the other night you and Farrell were talking, and I think you put the over under 8.5 or 9.5.
Yeah, right around there. I think it was 8.5. Yeah,
for Flacco. Unless he gets hurt, they're gonna see what they got in him. I mean, Spencer Rattler. I'm a Gamecock fan. He's a top quarterback, but they wouldn't have taken him where they did if they weren't going to start him all year.
Speaking of the Gamecocks, Deebo Samuel was there from 2014 to 2018. Then he went on to San Francisco. He is now in Washington. You did not draft him tonight, but I'm curious as what you think Deebo Samuel is going to do with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders this season.
He's interesting in that offense. I think personally they're going to try to use him like a running back like a couple years ago in San Francisco and as a receiver. He's very interesting. The big thing with him is if his hamstring can stay healthy because he's had some bad legs over the past, year and a half. Ideally, if Terry McLaurin doesn't get traded, I think he'll be probably in the 25 to 30 range in scoring. Probably a wide receiver too, low end. But if Terry McLaurin gets traded, man, his value is going to skyrocket.
Yeah. What do you think the percentage chance is of McLaurin getting traded at this point, July 31st, 2025?
If it was Dan Snyder, I would say 0%.
Right.
The new ownership, they don't want anything negative around Jaden Daniels. They got something good going there. But if I had to guess, I would probably only say it's probably maybe 15%.
So would you're drafting McLaurin as if he's going to be a Commander this season? You're drafting him based on buying the dip at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't think they'll trade him. They got a chance to win that division. You got the Eagles, the Cowboys. The Cowboys are going Cowboys every single year. And I know this is a big topic for Barkley and a bunch of drafts right now. And then Dynasty they're talking, how many carries he got last year. If something happens to Barkley, what does that do for Philly? The next team up, in my opinion, is Washington. They got a core. Their defense has gotten better. So I look for good things out of Washington. If I was a betting man, I would take Washington to win the division right now.
I'm with you on that. It makes sense just because like the regression to the mean for Philly, I think is coming, even if I don't have a good reason for it. It just seems like this is the kind of stuff that happens in the NFL. I want to ask you about your tight ends here. We already mentioned you taking Tucker Kraft in round 7. You take Brenton Strange in the 13th. You take Zach Ertz in the 14th. Certainly, you're looking for upside there at this point in the draft. But is there actually a decent-sized floor with Strange in Jacksonville and with Ertz in our nation's capital?
Yeah, Strange. I posted, I think there's 110 targets gone between Kirk and Ingram.
Maybe more, quite frankly.
Yeah, it may be more. I can't remember exactly what I read. But yeah, I like him. Trevor Lawrence is always thrown to a tight end. Naturally, the defense is going to eye Brian Thomas. I'm hoping between Strange and Ertz, there'll be somewhere between 12 and 14, ranking wise throughout the season. It's a crapshoot. It's just a gut feeling with Brenton Strange. And then Zach Ertz, he's just steady. I mean, Tucker Kraft's bye week 5. If I can get 8 to 10 points from Ertz, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and like you don't, like I always say to Brent, you've drafted a ton of best ball teams. You don't need world beaters. You don't need league winners at every single pick. There is something to be said for these steady Eddie guys to work them in here, and you've worked them in with both Strange and Ertz here. It makes perfect sense. You're coming up on your 18th round pick. We've already seen you take Marks in the 15th. We've seen you take Jarquez Hunter in the 16th. You already announced your pick as Tyler Shook as your third quarterback behind Brock Purdy in San Francisco, behind Jordan Love in Green Bay. Now you have Tyler Shook here as your third quarterback. You are on the clock for the 1808 here. Balanced team, dude. Nobody knows where you're going with this one. Why don't you give the insight to the Better Sports Network viewers on what you're going to do?
Only having 5 receivers, I'm trying to find piece one here. I think I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson just for the upside. The talent, I mean, he's shown he can do it. It's just whether or not his head's in the game. You got Jerry Jeudy, you got Tillman. If Deontay lines up in the slot, he could be a mismatch on teams against safeties or nickels. So, like what you just said, just shooting for a little upside. He may not win me any games, but he could potentially have me a 25-point week, and that could win me one. That's all I'm looking for. Between like 17 and 20, can you win me 1 week? That's all I'm looking for.
You have to, if you want to get a lot of targets on Cleveland, you have to pay up for a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who I'm trying to look at. He went in the 6th round tonight, the final pick of the 6th round, to Jason Cooper from the 1 spot. Deontay Johnson, we know how attractive he has been in PPR leagues over the course of his career. Will this happen again this year? I don't know. The odds are probably against it. But Brent Studebaker is investing an 18th round pick into it. Might be worth to see what happens there. Brett, this was so much fun. I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of this draft. You got a couple more picks left. Don't be a stranger. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight. Good luck in all of your leagues the rest of the way, including this one, obviously. And we will talk with you again real soon.
Cool. See you later, Balky. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That is Brent Studebaker, ladies and gentlemen, joining the show tonight from the 5 spot. He started off with Christian McCaffrey. He has taken it all the way to the 18th round with Deontay Johnson, as we are covering this live with the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, a $300,000 grand prize at stake here. These players hopping aboard tonight, just invested $125. Will they win the $300K? I don't know. Even if they don't win the whole thing, the runner-up prize is $100,000 here. So we will take you through the remainder of this draft here. I want to talk about some of the picks that have just gone off the board here. Jackson Dart ends up going in the 18th round here to Peter Masterson, BK Worldwide, to go with Jaden Daniels and Trevor Lawrence. I am of the opinion, and obviously Peter would disagree with me, if you have Daniels, if you have Lawrence, they have separate bye weeks. I don't see the reason to grab a third quarterback here. If I'm him here, I'm probably grabbing another upside running back. You look at his running back stable: Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Caleb Johnson, Tyjae Spears, Bishal Tootin, DJ Giddens. A lot of upside guys. I would have added one more on there. If Jaden Daniels fails and you're not using him a lot from a week-to-week standpoint in the best ball tournament, then you're probably not going to win this league regardless. When you draft these early round guys, whether it's Jaden Daniels in the 3rd round, whether it's Christian McCaffrey in the 1st round, whether it's Bucky Irving in the 2nd round, I use that as another example. You have to be basing the rest of your team in this format as if those early round picks are going to pan out. You're going against thousands of other teams. So if you are willing to admit that your early round picks are not going to work out, or at least you're going to hedge that they're not going to work out, that's a recipe for disaster. And I think that, again, Peter Masterson, certainly a very talented FFPC drafter. I would have not taken Dart there. You don't know how many starts he's going to make this year. I would have gone with another upside running back as he was acquiring them, with Giddens, with Tootin, with Spears. Will these guys pan out? I don't know. But I like that idea better than I do with Jackson Dart there. Let's talk about Joel 30. That is Robert Lipkin, who's hanging out in the YouTube chat tonight here on the Better Sports Network. He ends up not taking a tight end until round 10. And his first tight end off the board is the incomparable Kyle Pitts, which I know is getting, if you go on X, and I know our user base with the FFPC, the people who are on X, it's very, very low. Like the majority of our players are not on X. However, if they were, they'd be seeing a lot of people talking up Kyle Pitts right now, talking up Kyle Pitts working with the wide receivers rather than the tight ends. I think they're at a point in Atlanta where they have to try to find something. They have to try to find something that works for Kyle Pitts at this point. So whether he's working out with the wide receivers exclusively, whether he is, doing something with the quarterbacks, I don't know, but something different needs to be done there this year. And perhaps this is the year it clicks with Kyle Pitts. Now, I always talk about this in Pros versus Joes, which you can watch on the Better Sports Network. I got to get those video files over to Matt Deutsch, our producer, and he'll put those up there. But if you've been watching Pros versus Joes on the FFPC YouTube channel, you will have noticed that a lot of these people are drafting for first place, because first place in the Pros versus Joes will get a free 2026 FFPC main event entry. Second place, courtesy of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, Farrell Elliott, the commissioner there. He is kicking in a free pair of socks for second place, but everybody is going for first place. In this format, I don't know if you necessarily need to go that hard, but if you hit on it, it certainly could pay dividends in the money weeks, in weeks 15, 16, 17, whenever you're advancing here. So when you talk about Robert Lipkin and what he did at tight end tonight, I'm fine with it, considering he had 4 running backs on his team at that time: Achane, Hubbard, Jones, Pollard. He had 4 wide receivers on his team at that time: Nakua, Smith and Jigba, Harrison, and Flowers. And then he gets Kyler Murray in the 9th round, and Kyle Pitts is his first pick his 10th round pick as his first tight end. So you'd say, like, well, Balky, that's not going to work out. Well, think about what he acquired prior to that, and then look at what he did at the tight end position later on. You got Chiga Conquo in the 15th. You got Jatavian Sanders in the 17th. You got Juwan Johnson in the 19th. Johnson is a steady Eddie guy. Sanders is a potential breakout. And Okonkwo, who knows what's going to happen in Tennessee this year with the new quarterback in Cam Ward. We saw Calvin Ridley, who I think is going to be fine. I thought it was just a cramp. He got hurt either today or yesterday. I think he's going to be okay. But when it comes to that, like, you just never know. And Okonkwo is the definitive pro who is going to be playing behind Pitts. So if you can't get quality at a position, you got to go quantity. That's exactly what Robert Lipkin did here at his tight end position. So I applaud him for that. Now, I think another interesting team to talk about that we haven't talked about a whole lot tonight is Team 10, Dimitrios Gikas team, who Justin Herzig from Established Run, who joined us earlier, was talking about. And he loved this team through the first 2/3 of the draft. He might still love it, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it before Justin had to bounce tonight. A heavy wide receiver team early here from Team 10. Jefferson, Collins, Worthy, Pickens, Olave, and Egbuka. That is in the first 8 rounds. 6 of those picks were wide receivers. You supplement that with Amari Hampton at running back. You supplement that with Evan Engram. The Hampton pick, I think, is a pick to win type player in the 3rd round. The Evan Engram pick was just a FOMO pick. Like, not a FOMO pick. That's not accurate. The Evan Engram pick was like, hey, I don't want to miss out on tight end completely. Let me get somebody here. And he got Engram, which could be big. You think about the Denver offense this year and the changes that they're going to undergo. And quite frankly, the status quo that was there from last year. Bo Nix one of the better rookie quarterbacks last year in a really talented rookie quarterback class. He only finished behind Jaden Daniels in fantasy points last year, finishing ahead of guys like Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, who obviously didn't play last year. So I think there's something to be said about Denver this year. You have the addition of R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, similar to what the Chargers have done in the backfield, where they didn't have a whole lot in the backfield last year. They made significant upgrades where they're like, okay, we got to get somebody here, so we're going to draft Omarion Hampton. Oh, that's not enough. We're going to sign Najee Harris. So the Chargers backfield is fairly significantly better than it was last year. And then you look at Denver, what they've done. Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams. Well, what do they have this year? R.J. Harvey. And then J.K. Dobbins, who comes over from Los Angeles to Denver, who I know a lot of people are on this year as well. So getting back to that conversation here, you have all these receivers coupled with what I think could be a foundation back here on July 31st, 2025 in Hampton. And then you add one of my favorite running backs as your number 2, Jaylen Warren, who I think is going to get a lot of passes dumped off to him via Aaron Rodgers this year in Pittsburgh. Jaden Blue, who I know a lot of people have been down on with that initial reporting with saying he was lazy. I think one of the things you have to understand here, and was this Ben Gretsch or Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points? I can't remember. But the news on Jaden Blue being lazy and not working his tail off in training camp and needing a kicker in the rear end to get sort of his ass in gear, like, you have to understand, the guy who reported that was a guy who was a coach for the Cowboys 2 decades ago. 20 plus years he was removed from this team. And then you have all the beat writers talking about in interviewing all the Cowboys coaches, like, hey, what do you make of this comment? And they all refuted it. Obviously they're going to, but refuted it vehemently. And now you're hearing within the last 36 to 48 hours, a lot of positive stuff coming out about Jaden Blue as being the lead running back in Dallas, being the guy that you want to target in fantasy leagues over guys like Javonte Williams, over guys like Miles Sanders. And I'll be honest with you. I said this on Pros versus Joes. I've been drafting a ton of KFFSC Dynasty rookie teams at this point. The Dynasty rookie drafts, or the rookie drafts, are held much later in the season than than most rookie drafts like the FFPC. And I drafted Jaden Blue in a ton of drafts at the end of the second round, the early third round. The bar to jump over to being the lead running back in Dallas is incredibly low. Javonte Williams was let go by Denver, the team that drafted him, that would know the most about his knee injury. And quite frankly, do you really need to be an employee on Denver to see, like, hey, this guy was not good ever since this ACL tear? This guy is not a player that we want to count on in the future. So we're going to let him go. We're going to draft R.J. Harvey. We're going to trade up for R.J. Harvey in the second round, get him, and we're going to sign J.K. Dobbins. So Javonte Williams in Dallas, I know he got the bigger contract over Miles Sanders. To me, that's not a big deal. And then you consider Sanders, who basically got nothing to move from Carolina to Dallas. I don't think there's anything there. Jaden Blue, yeah, he was a day 3 pick. Some would say that he was even overdrafted in the 5th round. But you got to keep in mind how talented the running back class was this year. And if Jaden Blue was in last year's class, is he a day 2 pick? I think there's a decent possibility that he is. So when you talk about Team 10 here, grabbing Jaden Blue as their number 3 running back, a week ago, that looks not great. I think today it looks pretty good. Then they don't overpay for Tank Bigsby, and they get Tank Bigsby here in the 13th round. They don't overpay for Braylon Allen. 2 guys in Bigsby and Allen who are getting a lot of positive pub in training camp right now. He doesn't overpay for them, and he gets them as his number 4 and 5 running backs. He gets Will Shipley, who I think is the running back you want to own behind Saquon Barkley this year. If you don't like Saquon Barkley, you should like Will Shipley, because I think he's going to get a lot of touches, maybe not the lion's share, but the most valuable touches in Philadelphia. If Barkley were to miss time, I think you look at Shipley there. And then Brashard Smith, who granted was a 7th round pick, but the Chiefs have done very little in their running back room this offseason. Isaiah Pacheco is still the man. I think he is going to be the man this year, but if he does get an unfortunate injury, and quite frankly, Pacheco plays the game like Puka Nacua, no respect for his body. He's just going to run. He's going to run as hard as he can, and that creates injuries. And then after that, it's like Elijah Mitchell. Okay, yeah, maybe there's something there. But Brashard Smith was a player who has not been playing the running back position very long. I think last year was his first year playing running back in college football. And now he gets into a situation where he could be a significant contributor in that Kansas City backfield, which, I mean, is a short way of me saying, like, I love the Brashard Smith pick here for the who is that? Dimitrios Gikas here to go with Jalen Warren, to go with Jaden Blue, Tank Bigsby, Braylon Allen, Will Shipley, Brashard Smith. These are all running backs I would love to get late, and he got them after drafting a cavalcade of talented receivers early. He also gets Elijah Arroyo, Theo Johnson, and Ben Snott. These tight ends are all upside plays after he gets Evan Engram here. So this is a pick to win type team. We'll see if that continues throughout the season. But, Justin Herzig talked about how much he liked this team here, and I like it as well when you're talking about the potential for winning $300,000 this evening. I want to get to Keeb's Cookie Monsters here. Keeb's Cookie Monsters is owned by Ryan Imler. They were drafting from the 7th spot tonight. Missed out on tight end. I don't want to say missed because maybe they weren't targeting it. Mark Andrews, Colston Loveland, Jonnu Smith, and Mike Gesicki from round 6 through 14 on. Andrews is very interesting because he got Lamar Jackson in the 3rd. He also got Derrick Henry in the 2nd. So there's this massive Raven stack, which is seemingly becoming in vogue right now to get this Raven stack. I don't get it, but it's fine. It could work out. And maybe I do get it because the Ravens could have put up a ton of points this year. So he gets Andrews here in the 6th. Colston Loveland, who Justin Herzig talked about, how much he liked him. Loveland here in the 8th round. Jonnu Smith, I think a little bit early for me, given that he's going to be sharing snaps with Pat Freiermuth in Pittsburgh. So I don't know if I like that choice there in the 10th round. I'd be much more comfortable later on, but I get it. I'm not going to rip it. And then Gesicki, I like that pick in round 14. We saw the news earlier tonight with Noah Fant going to Cincinnati tonight. And I think Matt Shaw from Draft Sharks was saying, like, listen, if you're moving Mike Gesicki up or down your draft rankings, your draft boards based on that, you're doing it wrong. They play different positions between Fant and Gesicki. Gesicki, this almost cements, I think Ian Hartitz from Fantasy Life was talking about this day. He is cemented in as the slot guy for Cincinnati, maybe over Yoshibus, maybe over Jermaine Burton. So Gesicki in a tight end premium format as your tight end 4, sign me up for it. I like that quite a bit. So congratulations to Keeb's Cookie Monsters. A well-done draft for the tight end position there. So much more I want to get to tonight. We are out of time. We are way over time, actually, because this was an incredibly slow draft. 2 hours and 7 minutes it took us to get through this draft tonight, but that's okay. I want to thank everybody who participated in this draft tonight. I want to thank Justin Herzig. Make sure you're signing up, ffn60.com, following all his work at establishedrun.com, and, of course, connecting with him on X at Justin Herzig. Brent Studebaker, who came on to talk about his spot from the 5, or his team from the 5 spot tonight. That was interesting as well to hear from him. Brent Studebaker, a very talented and well-decorated FFPC player as well. Speaking of the FFPC, the main event, the Big Gorilla, the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament, all available at myffpc.com. And, of course, Dynasty Leagues there as well. We're going to have startup drafts going through the month of August, 2,000-plus leagues in 15 years. None of them have ever folded. Play FFPC Dynasty Fantasy Football. You won't regret it at myffpc.com. That will complete our show tonight. Next Thursday, we are live, no live draft coverage, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with Draft Sharks Alex Korf, Peakton High School, will be joining us next week. That's always a fun show. Can't wait to talk with him. FFPC live draft coverage continues on the FFPC YouTube channel. We got Big Gorilla draft coverage with Aiden LaCorey, myself, and Farrell Elliott tomorrow. The Pros versus Joe's drafts will be up for your viewing pleasure on the Better Sports Network socials here shortly. That's on me. I got to get that to our producer, Matt Deutsch. And for him, for Justin Herzig, for Brent Studebaker, thank you so much for watching the FFPC Insider Access Show here on the Better Sports Network. We'll talk with you again next week.